Welcome everyone to this session. This is a market discovery workshop focusing on Africa, specifically on the regions Kenya, Nigeria, as well as Rwanda. But we host several of this market discovery workshop, and I'm so happy to see so many of you here already. But before we dive into today's agenda, I just want to share a bit more about the project. So, Seeds of Bravery is a 20 million euro project funded by the European Union under European Innovation Council. And what's the mission of this project? The mission is to support Ukrainian tech startups, bringing them closer to the EU. And we do this by hosting different programs that I'm going to talk more about later, as well as having different support programs. But the main mission is to foster diversity and promote the deep tech industry. And I'm so happy that you're here to join, hopefully get inspired on how you can expand your Ukrainian innovation into the African market. And who are we behind? So the consortium of Seeds of Bravery is quite large. We're 17 organizations and 2 associated partners, and we range from academic institutions to industry leaders. And today, I'm very proud to represent Impact Hub Stockholm, who's organizing this workshop together with Anastasia from Vacuum Deep Tech Accelerator, as well as Talene from Plug and Play, as well as Abby from Axis BIC, who's helping us with all of the technical support. And we're so happy to have her here. And just briefly about the different programs. So we have allocated 12 million euro in non-refundable grants for the Ukrainian startups. And here are the different programs where you can receive these grants. We have innovation services, entrepreneurship, rebuilding Ukraine, deep tech scale-up, as well as deep tech incubation. But like I said, it's not only financial opportunities. We also have other non-financial support. We have our fantastic matchmaking, also run actually by Plug and Play, where we match make Ukrainian startups with different stakeholders as investors, accelerators, even sometimes pilot customers. We have specific programs for female entrepreneurship and leadership. We also support Ukrainian startup to apply for other European funding calls. And then we also host these upskilling workshops like market discovery. We host demo days where Ukrainian startups can pitch for investors, as well as a 2-week-long program called Market Fast Track, where we support Ukrainian startups in a go-to-market strategy. And what's on the agenda today? So we're starting, I say like country/region overview, because we're covering 3 different countries, Nigeria, Kenya, as well as Rwanda, but it's also the whole region, of course. And that's how we're going to kick off. Then we're continuing with the startup ecosystem overview and opportunities available on the market. And here we're also going to cover with Ibe, a live experience from the African market with a local entrepreneur, as well as a live experience with the African market, but from a Ukrainian perspective. After that, we're continuing to an interactive panel discussion about the ecosystem, what challenges they have and what innovations that are needed. And then we're continuing into one of my favorite topics as working at Impact Hub, impact-driven solutions in the local market in Nigeria. And we're wrapping up this day with an investment landscape panel. So that's our day, and I want to start with welcoming Desiree Tsengo, engineer, technologist, and market innovation consultant freelance at USPA. Please, Desiree, the stage is yours. You can share your screen and start your presentation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will now share my screen. So if you can just confirm when you will see it. Just hold on a second. All right. You see my screen?
Yes, you see your screen.
I'm actually gonna maybe share it on a separate screen. I think that will be easy. Yeah. Okay, hold on a second.
We saw your screen, yes.
Okay. Yeah, the joy of running things live. I'm sharing it again, just out of. Okay, now got it.
Yes, we see it.
So, um, so you said I have 20 minutes. So I'll try to be concise, but at the same time, getting into the specifics of what we are presenting here. Sorry for my voice. When I'm not in Rwanda, I'm in Sweden, and vice versa. And lately, we've had 13 degrees, and now we are at -2. So the beauty of changing weather. The world meets in Africa. That's literally not just my beliefs, but that's what I've experienced when working in some different African countries, but in particular, my most relevant experience being in Rwanda, where I did between 2018 and 2020. I work as a technology advisor for a governmental agency with the role of supporting the local entrepreneurs to build startups, in particular hardware startups, with as much as possible locally sourced resources. And back then, I interacted with Japanese, Korean, American, Belgian, French, German, Saudi, Qatari, uh, Turkish, Hungarian, and Chinese, and so on. So I would say that I've met people that I would have, I believe, never met anywhere else. And this is on top of the diversity of the African population that is interacting across the different countries. One thing that I want to highlight here is that migration in Africa happens primarily within the continent. Therefore, the 54 recognized states, I mentioned recognized because some countries are not recognized globally, but those that are recognized globally are 54, are traveling within the continent. They are moving from one country to another, exchanging their 1,250 to 3,000 languages. Some of the most known ones are Swahili, but also you have languages that are spoken by hundreds of millions of people, and you have tribes that are found in different countries. One of the most popular, the country with the highest population, and one of the highest that we're gonna present in our presentation here is Nigeria, with above 200 million people. And the continent of Africa itself is today 1.3 billion, but forecasted by 2099. I mean, at the end of the century, but who knows what will happen back then. By then, it's going to be anyhow above 3 billion people. And by 2050, it's forecasted to be 2.5 billion people. So that means that literally the future is happening in Africa, not just in terms of business, economical development and growth, but also in terms of diversity, cultural exchanges. I'm going to today present in particular Kenya, Nigeria, and Rwanda as market opportunity for Ukrainian startup founders. And I love to have been offered the possibility to present that because we often think of business and market opportunity from an emerging or poor economy to richer, well-developed economies in the north, US, Europe, and beyond. But the fact that today we have this kind of inverse traction where founders, companies from more developed areas are now looking at countries and markets on my continent to expand their activities is to me a beautiful sign of potential strong collaboration. But also, interestingly, this is kind of going back to rebuilding links that were done after the period of the independence. Because many do not know, but in the 60s, there was actually strong ties between many African countries and Ukraine, for example, and other countries in this part of the world. I'm not gonna go deep into the history part here because here we're about technology and business, but I wanted to set up this level playing field and then move on to Well, if you want to follow that presentation online, you can also scan this QR code. I put it as a web app, so you can just follow along and go back to it afterward. I think I'll keep it online for a little while until I feel that maybe it is not needed anymore. About me, I mentioned already briefly my background, but what makes me, I think, relevant for this talk here also is that I was born and raised in Africa, in Central African Republic, Bangui. Many people do not know this country, and the name itself, I would say, could have been more original. It used to be called Ubangi Shari under the colonization. I'm a French speaker by born and raised. I also speak my mother tongue, which is Sango. My mother is Rwandese, which is the connection I have with Rwanda. And I've worked there, as I mentioned, at a high level, interacting with different governmental agencies, but also accelerator, incubators, and entrepreneurship communities, including Impact Hub. I actually know one of the experts who's going to present today, CARE. We've interacted in different matters. I've been coached in some hackathons, and I try to build bridges between my ex-employer in Rwanda, NIRDA, and accelerators and incubators and so on in the country, trying to build an ecosystem of innovators and builders. I'm also blockchain advocate for the Africa Blockchain Institute, and since last year, I am one of the builder in Pan-African community that is about using technology for financial inclusion across the continent. The background of this project was already presented, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. I will start with presenting the countries itself, Rwanda being the smallest of them all, but also one with some of the strongest potential. Rwanda ranks 38th doing business, and it's been for many years now one of the best places to do business on the continent in terms of its business friendly environment, its regulation that is strong and clear. It has small GDP, but has a strong economical growth. And the population is consistently growing, 13 million today. Internet penetration is about 50%, but 4G is 90%. That means that most people go online through their mobile devices. And when you know that the population, the workforce is about 70% plus working in agriculture and farming, you can imagine that even in the countryside, farmers have access to internet and the 4G, which is why financial inclusion, fintech, transactions happening even on very simple mobile devices, features phone, those with the button, are also done by farmers. Kenya has 56 for doing business rank, much bigger, stronger economy than Rwanda, with GDP of 113 billion, lower growth, sorry, a bigger population, and internet penetration, which is across the country above 85%. Everybody is online, literally, or almost literally. That means that digital businesses, everything that is happening online is happening there. And you'll be surprised to know that people on the African continent also watch Netflix, they have Instagram, YouTube, and you name it. That means that the businesses and services we're paying for in Europe from for American built services are also used on the African continent by the same population, and there is no free meal. They also pay the same amount as we're paying here. That shows that there is a purchasing power for software as a service businesses that is high enough so that you can look at these potential customers the same way you look at customers in richer countries. Nigeria is a mastodont. It's a huge country with a way lower rank when it comes to doing business, but has a GDP that is four times at least the one of Kenya, or four times plus the four times the one of Kenya, and cannot compare to the one of Rwanda. Population almost 220 million people, and it's growing. And the internet penetration is also relatively high. Here are the geolocations of these three countries. Rwanda has a border with Kenya. Nigeria is on West Africa. West Africa, when I was kid, having spent a few years in Burkina Faso, was to me French-speaking area. It took me to be an adult to also realize that there are English-speaking countries in West Africa. And today, when we think of West Africa, we think of Nigeria, Ghana, but we forget that the biggest majority of these countries are actually French speakers, which I think is maybe an opportunity for any company or service providers from richer countries to deliver, because for the moment, the only solutions that they have access to are French speaking solutions, which are great in terms of quality and reliability and so on. But if you can have more than one partner or business associate, wouldn't you mind having more companies and looking at these countries to deliver their services? In terms of innovation, technology, and focus, Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria have all their strengths and weaknesses, but focusing on the strength, Rwanda has, for example, something called the ICT Hub, which includes different actors like Impact Hub, and also you have Westerwelle, Norhuen, and so on, which are quite strong actors in the entrepreneurship ecosystem locally. Innovation is often driven by government that sets vision that are present later on, and all the actors locally are working in line with that vision. Then you have companies that are operating in the country like Zipline, delivering blood to populations in remote areas, so in the health tech sector. You have smart cities plan through Kigali Innovation City, and much more. You have, of course, the Kigali Convention Center, which is the place to be when you want to attend international events in security, well organized, efficiency. Kenya has fintech, and that's literally its biggest strength, with actors like Pesa being the product of a company called Safaricom. More than 40% of all the digital data in Kenya are actually happening through M-Pesa. You can pay from your school tuition to your healthcare services, your rent, your pack of milk in the supermarket, everything happening on your mobile device, whether it's a smartphone or a simple feature phone. It uses a technology called USSD, and it's actually quite an old company. So today, the renewal of services through innovation is welcome, so that Kenya can jump the next wave of digital innovation. Now, climate tech, e-commerce, agri-tech, and edtech are also some of the focus of the country. Nigeria has also fintech as some of its focused application, and it has companies like Paystack that got sold a few years ago more than $200 million to what's the name again? Stripe, yes, because Stripe, which is one of the fintech, if not the fintech leader in the US, is also now looking at Africa as a market to expand, and it's doing that through acquisition. You have also done e-commerce, digital health, and edtech as some of the market focus. Fintech backbone are the common denominator among the actors. Climate tech, mobile first solutions. All of these three areas are what we believe can join these three countries together. Here are some illustration of what Rwanda has been doing in terms of technology and digital innovation, from the mobile phone, where you can connect with your doctor and healthcare professional, to the simple feature phone, sending some requests, paying your bills, to Zipline and other local drone companies, either for security or for agriculture or for healthcare. Kenya, Nigeria have their strongest side on the fintech, where you can manage your whole economy, but also your social life, your digital life on your mobile device and beyond. These countries are so huge and therefore cannot be compared on the same scale as countries like Rwanda, which, however, has a faster growth because has maybe a clearer, sounder vision and implementation. The way they operate is in Rwanda through government-led organizations like RDB, Rwanda Development Board, several tech hubs, including Impact Hub, which is one of the organizers of this webinar, 4G penetration, public-private partnerships, and tax incentives. Kenya has several startup ecosystem or innovation hubs that are often private-led. Private funding, therefore, often flows more often to Kenya than to other countries because that's where the funding can be then leveraged in a clearer, more efficient, or the return of investment, I would say, will be higher. Mobile broadband and Vision 2030 is also one of the one of the strategies of Kenya. Rwanda's vision has had Vision 2020 and Vision 2030, and also Vision 2050 now that has been laid. Nigeria does not really have a Vision 20 something as per se, but it has private-led organizations and national industrial information technology development agencies, NITIDA support, and other government-led projects that are supporting local entrepreneurship. It has a strong talent pool and a strong mobile market. I mentioned the Rwanda Vision 2050, which is basically a roadmap that everyone can follow to work in line, and it helps you to align your project to the country's focus in terms of environmental and sustainability compliance, in terms of technology development, education, and doing what it takes for the country to be where it want to be in the future. Kenya has also Vision 2030, and Nigeria, no unified vision, but leveraging scale local partnerships is the way to go. So the idea will be if you want to operate in these countries, start in Rwanda for early stage pre-seed innovation, expand to Kenya for proving the concept, if not having your initial traction and growth, and scale wide in Nigeria, but with allies because it's a strong market and therefore requires to have local partners that will be your support because it's also a tough market. Here are the vision that I mentioned earlier. You can find them online. The key industries of these countries in Rwanda are ICT, tourism, mining, and health tech. Kenya, well, I mentioned and Kenya and Nigeria, fintech, obviously, but you have also e-commerce, digital health. Oh, renewable is also very important. Kenya has huge forests. I could have mentioned forestry there as well, but I think it falls into sustainability and renewable and so on. And agriculture. Agriculture is everywhere, but when it comes to business, you've got to think also that because it's often public funded or public led, you might not have the same return of investment. But the beauty of agriculture and farming is that you do not measure your success by how much money you're making from your innovation. You can test, scale locally. You can get participant, pilots, customers to test your solution, and then you can expand once you've got your sustainable, stable business model. Here are the different partners organizations that you can collaborate with. In Rwanda, well, the IFC is actually the International Financial Center, which is in the making. In Kenya, you have several startup incentives. You have strong US and Kenya collaboration through their American Chamber of Commerce and some other project and so on, which makes that nowadays, with the changes ongoing, Kenya is also one of the countries the most impacted by the funding cut. And Nigeria, because of, and excuse me for using this word, the strong intrinsic hustler mentality, with or without public funding, things happen. You just get things done. You have no other alternatives, which makes it also a good market when it comes to companies that want to grow fast, disrupt, working in collaboration with governments, but being able to operate also without it, because the inconsistencies of this country are also somehow its strength. It forces people to be innovative, to be disruptor, and I believe that Nigeria in the future will also innovate and disrupt competitors globally, not just locally on the continent. Here is SWOT analysis that I made on the different countries. I invite you to check it more in details. There is a lot of text here, but what it says basically is that for, let's say, strength of the country I mentioned earlier, good internet, penetration, fintech, and so on. The weaknesses, in case of Rwanda, for example, is access to funding, which is often publicly led funding. Private funding is channeled through traditional industries. It is changing, but it takes time. Kenya, well, bureaucratic hurdles and concentrated funding in specific industries. And Nigeria, regulatory inconsistencies and uneven support ecosystem. I won't get into details here when it comes to corruption and so on, because it's not my place to judge, but it can be sometimes a bit challenging in some of these countries. And security also is important to keep in mind. When it comes to Rwanda, for example, I can say it's one of the safest countries in the world, so you can live and work there safely. But then you have access to other stronger, bigger markets nearby, so you can actually operate from Kigali or other cities and have your customer base outside, because you'll find this place as your proof of concept. GDP growth I mentioned, and then the threat I also mentioned, and I won't spend too much time detailing them. Oh yeah, also access to the sea is important. Kenya has access to the sea, Nigeria to some extent, Rwanda not. So being landlocked can be also sometimes a limitation if you wait for your electronic components to come from overseas. Here is the comparison between these different ecosystems, regulatory environment and relative simplicity in operating, challenges in ecosystem maturity and market size for Rwanda. Kenya has a good balance between all the aspects, but now, as I mentioned, with the changes happening in the US, it might be impacted by limited access to funding. We will see. However, Kenyan are also highly educated. And what I loved when I was there a few months recently is that the local founders stay in Kenya while working for international companies. And I think it's important to have more African founders being in the country, um, because they can contribute to local economical development. But also, when companies are opening activities or offices in Kenya, Rwanda, or Nigeria, you need to have the local talents available. And it is good that these talents will be potentially those who are going to make your venture a success when you expand internationally. Nigeria, strong early stage promises and broad categories, but struggle with complex regulatory environments. To conclude, well, Rwanda is a good place to start in ease and peace, security, safely, and test your ideas and innovation. Kenya is great for expanding at a slight higher scale, leveraging a fast-paced innovation ecosystem, a lot of diversity. I've rarely seen places more diverse than Nairobi, and you have access to all the things that you miss from Europe or US, and access to local specificities, food, music, cultures, and so on. And Nigeria, it's it's a beast, as I mentioned. Think about New York in the 90s or something for those who were born in the 90s. Nigeria is a big beast to tackle, but once you tackle it with allies, you're good. I remember an anecdote of some people saying that some Nigerians that I worked with in Kenya and Rwanda, saying that they know some Nigerian people, billionaires, who are actually sending pizza from London to Lagos every week through British Airways just because they miss it. And they pay millions of dollars a week for that. Now, if you want to know more about this market, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Plug and Play team, and let's discuss in details how we can help you expand your activities on the continent. Thank you. Oh, and there are some backup slides, by the way, so you can check it on the online presentation. Um, yeah,
Thank you very, very much, Desiree, for a wonderful presentation. Uh, Maybe we have time just for this quick question. It was a question about how much English is widespread, or should we adopt our product to another like local language?
yeah. So everybody that I met in Kenya, Nigeria, people were also in Rwanda to speak English, and this is one of the working language in these countries. So you don't need to adapt to the language. But like everywhere else, if you speak local language, like in Kenya, you have some, or Nigeria, you connect not just to the business people, but you connect to the community, the population, which potentially can be your next customers.
Thank you so much. We don't unfortunately have time for more questions at the moment, so we will continue. But thank you so much, Desiree. And we're gonna continue for our next chapter. I'm just gonna share my screen again. And here I am so proudly to present one of our partners, Anastasia, who's going to moderate the next section, Unlocking Africa, Startup Stories and Ecosystem Opportunities. Anastasia, do you want to join me?
Sure. Alexandra, thank you for your introduction, and I'm really happy to be here today with all of you guys to talk and explore the startup ecosystem in this region. And it is my huge pleasure to represent you, our first speaker today with us. Alexandra, can you just click? Today with us, we have Mo Salah. Mo is a managing partner at Pit Lane Ventures, and he is also a startup Grind chapter director. So he knows a lot about this ecosystem and the community of startup founders. And he will talk about, oh, this is a wrong topic, but he'll talk about startup ecosystem. He'll do a startup ecosystem overview and share some insights and opportunities that are available there. So Mo, if you could join and start sharing your presentation.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here. For a second, I was like, "Is that a presentation or is that a panel?" So it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and huge shout out to all the founders from Ukraine who is building their companies in I would say in tough during such tough times. So yeah, just wanted to give them a shout out and thank you to everyone who's on the team and making all of such great work happen. Just one second, I'm just gonna put my screen on. Can you see my screen?
We can. It's
Okay,
perfect.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So, my name, I just want to start with what I'm going to take you through today. Um, Firstly, I'm just going to just tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to do a little bit of introduction to North Africa with a huge focus on Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco. Those are the largest markets in that part. And then I'm gonna I'm gonna speak a little bit about how strategic is it to might be in one of those markets if you target the rest of the Middle East, North Africa, or let's say the Arab world in a way or another. And then we will have around 4 or 5 minutes for Q&A. So my name is Mo. As Dee mentioned, I'm a startup grant chapter director. Historically, I've been managing accelerators for the last few years, and I've worked with several startups. Spent basically my whole career within the startup ecosystem. I did work with Techstars and SeedStars, Startup Grind, in several regions in the world, mainly Middle East, Africa, and the United States. My work have been featured in most major TV channels in the world and most global conferences. And not gonna spend a lot of time here, but I'm very excited to be with you and grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you today. Why you should go for North Africa? Number one is the size. There is arguably more people in North Africa than, which is around 5 countries, than I guess almost as much as Europe. And usually people don't look like greatly at the region because of I would say lack of marketing and stuff. But the region have the highest internet penetration across the continent. And that's the only part of Africa where you don't have English issues. And when I mean you don't have English issues, I mean you don't have really English issues because people you work with in Kenya or Rwanda or everywhere else in Africa, some of them might know English, but the local market, it's going to be very, very hard to get them to speak to English to you. If you look at North Africa, you have third of almost half of the population are in Egypt, and English has been the second language since forever. And most brands advertise and communicate in English unless they're doing like mass products, like more on the F&B kind of things. You don't have that issue at all. And then you have one of the highest rates of credit cards across emerging markets and definitely the highest across Africa, especially in Egypt. You will not face a problem with someone paying you for your SaaS product or your subscription or any of that. Netflix, Spotify, almost all the major typical subscription-based startups are very well active and they're doing great in these markets. Like the rest of Africa, everything is happening on mobile, so I wouldn't spend that much time building web unless I'm doing B2B. The other great thing in that part of Africa is the local payment systems are very, very well established, and it's one of the largest industries within tech. And we have seen exits and we have seen IPOs for companies that are within that vertical. The other great thing that we have is we have a very well-established venture capital ecosystem, especially in Tunisia and in Egypt. So if you are looking to raise $10 million or anything below that, you should not be struggling at all to raise that amount totally from local investors. And then the other thing is the culture is very well established thanks to literally decades of successful exits and IPOs. And there is several companies from that part that were acquired by the likes of Microsoft or went to list on Nasdaq and things like that. So overall, there is a very well-established ecosystem. So on daily basis, you're not struggling when you deal with your peers. You're not struggling when you deal with corporates, and customers are very tech savvy and insanely young. You're talking about one of the youngest populations on Earth, where majority of the population are literally under 30 years old. Top accelerators and funds. I know most founders would look at that when they want to look into a market or expand to a market. I would say there is at least 7 or 8 entities in each market between Morocco, Egypt, and Tunisia that are well established. Some of them have hundreds of millions of dollars of money to deploy. If you are super early stage, going to either Egypt or Tunisia, I would go for Flat 6 Labs. They have a great program and they're usually the first step in the journey of most founders, I would say, in this local market. If you're not, you have some very experienced venture capitalists like Algebra Ventures, A15, and Endure Capital in a place like Egypt, and then you have Africa Invest and Zaytuna Capital in a place like Tunisia. If you're looking to work with corporates, Orange Ventures operate in both Morocco and Tunisia. And in Egypt, you can work directly with most of corporates, especially telecoms and banks. So that really, really helps when it's come to making your life, I would say, a lot easier. What are the industries that everyone is building within? I would say fintech is the most funded and the largest vertical within the ecosystem because North Africa is still in Africa, and there is still an issue with, I would say, financial inclusion, and or the rates are still not at where their governments are hoping for. It has been growing massively, and banks have been absorbing some of the customers that were originally, I would say, fintechs and startups customers. They're now bank customers. Second thing is mobility and logistics. There is a lot of underdeveloped areas where typical companies or typical corporates do not serve. And you will see some of the startups, for example, doing delivery in areas like that, and they end up gaining significant market share that help them compete with even the likes of DHL, for example. SaaS is mostly the way to go for most startups who are not doing B2C, and it's very favored by investors, and it's much easier to raise money for a SaaS company than, I would say, most other business models. We're seeing recently many AI startups, including ones who are building for the world, not necessarily building for the region. So that's also another great thing that is happening in North Africa, which is the amount of people building now to the world for the world, basically, or using local talent in these markets while selling in Europe or in the United States. So because of the cost of labor and the cost of operations in general. The last thing is healthcare, and I would say there is huge gaps in that market, and that would be something I would look at personally if I'm starting a startup. What I wanna talk about now is why being in North Africa, specifically Egypt, might be a massive strategic thing for you to address a much bigger market, which is the Middle Eastern market. So if you are in Egypt, you're 1 to 2 hours away from every major city in the Middle East. That includes Saudi, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Jordan, and the rest, Bahrain and Kuwait, and the rest of the GCC market. And that market is, especially the Saudi market, has the highest purchase power capacity within that part of the world, and has the most venture capital money available next to the United Arab Emirates. So if you wanna build something that I would say, if you wanna build in a place where you can test things, but things are not as expensive as the GCC, you can maybe start in Egypt, get a few tens of thousands of users or 3,000, depends on the business you're building. And then you take this well-established business to a place like Saudi or a place like the UAE and start charging, I would say, more premium for your services and for your product. Also, most of the investors who invest in Egypt or even in Morocco or Tunisia would be investing in these markets. So some of your early stage investors or later, I would say pre-Series A, Series A investors who might invest you in Egypt would be the people who write you the next checks when you expand to places like Saudi or the United Arab Emirates or Qatar. The other thing also is most corporates in Egypt are the same in the other markets or owned by the other market or owned by other corporates in other markets. For example, if you work with Etisalat in Egypt, Etisalat operates in several African markets. Egypt is one of them, but they are a United Arab Emirates owned, for example, company. If you're in real estate and you work with Al Abbar in Egypt, Al Abbar have investments all over the region. If you work with Al Futain, which is one of the largest F&B and retail groups, the same applies. You're tapping into another 10 markets easily. So that's one of the reasons why I would keep in mind if I do have operations in North Africa is what doors North Africa opens for me. And the last and most important thing is culturally, religiously, and language-wise, if you build your business around the local market in any North African market, especially Egypt, it's so easy to take it to the rest because you will not have to translate. You already have done it in Arabic, you're just going to take it everywhere else. You've already done it in culturally, in an acceptable way culturally that's going to work also everywhere else. So when you go to the other markets, you just need to hire the right people to basically sell. And on the sales point, in whether in North Africa or in the rest of the Middle East, I would have an advice because a lot of people don't look at it and takes them time to figure it out when they operate locally is, do we need to hire locals? And the answer is 100% yes. You need a country manager or someone who heads your business development, sales, your front face from one of these local markets, and I would have one for each market. Whether especially in places like Egypt and Saudi, where people are quite sensitive to who sells them and how sells them and all these things. So these are overall my thoughts on why you should be in North Africa and why North Africa might be important for your overall growth strategy and addressing the 450 million Arabs who live among around 15 countries in that part of the world. That's it for me. I'm more than happy to take as many questions as you guys want.
Ma, thank you so much for your presentation. It was like super precise and it's insightful. I appreciate that. Our first question would be, we as Ukrainians, we are not like super familiar with this region and with this market, and we understand that behavioral wise, the patterns of like of business operation might be different as in Europe, for instance. And what would be like a simple step-by-step plan in a go-to-market penetration? Would you suggest, for instance, for EdTech startup, would you suggest going on an exhibition and then finding local partners? Or would it better to, I don't know, start a cold outreach in LinkedIn, connect with someone, and then try to do some trials or beta testing? Or should we be present there in order to do that? Or the more like sustainability and the story with donor organizations would be the best approach. So what are your thoughts here and suggestions for us? Thank you.
Let me start with the Middle East and our culture in general is a very in-person experience. It's a very in-person culture. So you achieve way more if you're in person. And I don't mean in person you move to a city in the Middle East, but you should be present at some of your key meetings. You will notice it clearly how the people behave. We like to work with people we like. We like to work with people we know, and we like to work with people we can hang out with. So so unless you're selling something very straightforward and you're just gonna run an advertisement campaign on Instagram, people are gonna pay you $5 a month. You will have to show up to your meetings, especially with corporates, and especially if there is one key person are gonna decide huge contracts for you. Something to keep in mind that a lot of entities in the Middle East are overseen by a few people, and a lot of businesses are family-owned businesses. So you being on the good side of some people matters, and matters big time. So so I would do that. On the other hand, it's good to be present because you need to build a network that might help you navigate a few things, especially legally and politically. If you need to be doing that, that's from an aspect. To your question about an edtech, firstly, I will hire a local teacher because I would hire someone who's local from the education system to firstly put this in a frame this or put this in a package that suits the market. Number two is I would need someone who knows the industry because this is a very, very culty industry in the Middle East. So you need someone who knows the other teachers, you need someone who knows the heads at the ministries and schools and all these things. So hiring locals really, really helps in the Middle East, especially when in industries that I'd consider in ways monopolies.
Thank you for your answer. And the other thing is that we have this maybe misperception that in this region, the impact-driven solutions are the key solutions and that would thrive. And then while you're presenting, we've heard about fintech, we've heard about AI. So did I understand correctly that it's a misperception and there is more focus on like economic development and more like operational structural things?
I don't think a single Arab country has a social entrepreneurship law. I'm not sure where this perception came from, but we're 100% focused on economical growth and economical diversification. So you have, if I go over countries now one by one, if you go Morocco, Algeria, especially Algeria, Libya, Saudi, Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. These are 8 countries out of major, let's say 12, are all doing everything they're doing to diversify from oil and gas. So because they're not seeing much future for that in the long term. So would I say impact driven programs would be major? No. Maybe a women empowerment program that is funded by the European Union get a grant, yes, but would that build a business that is sustainable and long term? Highly doubtful. Also, the USAID, with the shutdown of the USAID, I think the USAID was spending at least $5 to $10 billion a year in that part of the world that its money is gone. So the UK is cutting it down massively now. GIZ is expected to cut down massively. The Europeans in general are expected to cut down massively for they have a lot to deal with at home. So if you're building a business even in Africa, not even in North Africa, now I would not account for any grants. I would go and build a business that is from day one have a commercial appeal, not necessarily make revenues from day one because you have investors and you can get money from VCs, but the building a business that is going to take a grant every year and a significant grants, I would say that business would struggle with the current climate politically and socially.
Thank you for your opinion and for your insights. We have one more question from Serhi, but if you may, Mo, please answer in the chat so that we can move on to the next
Okay,
speaker.
I'll answer Sergey in the chat.
Thank you so much. This was Mo Salah and his presentation about startup ecosystem. And now it's my huge pleasure to introduce you to our next speaker. It's gonna be life experience with African market from local entrepreneur. And I'm welcoming Agwu Kalu Ibe. He's a passionate innovator and entrepreneur dedicated to solving the plastic crisis. And he's a founder of Level Up Recyclers Ltd. So Iba, the floor is yours. Happy that you've joined us. Thank you for being here and supporting our Ukrainian deep tech ecosystem.
Thank you, Anastasia. It's good to be here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Avukalibe. So I'm currently speaking from Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you for this opportunity. Our founders who are here, welcome, thank you. The previous speakers, you've done so well. My job is simple now. so I can just share my experience and we get it moving because all of the technical details are now covered. My journey began in 2011. We had a little security crisis. I was forced to go to a makeshift camp. It was in the makeshift camp that the idea for Level Up Recyclers was born. Actually, my family was displaced because of the war that happened in years past in Nigeria, and we couldn't recover from that. Then personally, I faced a personal crisis in the northern part of Nigeria where I was displaced, found myself in a camp. So the picture you are looking at is the Zuma Rock. Beside that picture, beside that big rock is where the makeshift camp is located. And that was where the idea for the business was born. Living in a makeshift camp, a lot was coming through my head. And we saw the living conditions in the camp. We saw the way that plastic was being managed, the waste. There was no proper waste management. I began to nurse the idea, and we launched in 2020. We've been doing collection, recycling, supplying to bigger manufacturing companies. Currently, we are doing turning the waste plastics into reusable products. We're trying to use the waste plastics to make boards and medium density fiber boards that we can use to build shelter, temporary shelter for anyone that is displaced. It has application in manufacturing and furniture. So basically that's just it. So we've been in business since 2020. And thank you for this opportunity. Key lessons for me, you must know what you want from the beginning. You have to know your customers and what you are offering to them. If you know what you want, know who they are and what they actually need. So that we're getting to the winning strategy. One of the mistakes we were many that started at the same time. One of the mistakes we often make as founders is that we've had great business ideas. I have this solution. I think everyone needs it. In reality, when you test it in the market, they may not need it. And it becomes worse when you are going to a different cultural context where everything is different. I cite an example. We wanted to do just to do a community service as part of our operation. We wanted to give water to a community we felt that did not have water. It just to give them water. So we came in, we told them, we're going to give you this thing you've not seen before. You will need it. It will make your life easier. It will make your life better. They said, get it. Let's go ahead. We built the borehole, got it done, and they didn't use it or they could not use it. So we were wondering, why would you not want to use the water we've gotten for you? Why do you prefer to walk several kilometers just to get water? You know, we found out the reason is, well, it was unbelievable, and it gave me, it really changed my perspective when it comes to building solutions. We found out that actually what they needed was not water. Going to get the water from a long distance offered an opportunity for those who are married, husband and wife. They were living in a small space. So the opportunity when the children go to fetch water, it will be an opportunity for them to enjoy themselves as husband and wife. So they needed their kids or their children to be going that distance to fetch water so that they can have a little time for themselves. For us, we felt what they needed was water. Actually, what they needed was to expand their living space, to have some privacy in their living arrangement. And we began to do that. That was what led to us trying to do the plastic boards to make shelters. So strategic partnership, customer-centric, and data-driven decision. Now, you can do a whole lot when you partner with local businesses or local entities within the market. You will get a whole lot. I will speak to this in the course of my presentation. So, but let's go ahead. Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. The first speaker did a whole lot of justice to this, so I will just gloss through it. Yeah, the average age of average population, the age of Africa is around 19, but Nigeria is 18. Actually, we are very young. So whatever you're doing that is targeted towards the young people, trust me, you will not just make impact, you will grow your business massively. And yes, we've done so much within fintech. A whole lot needs to be done around renewable energy and agri-tech. I will speak to that more. Yeah, a lot of growth potentials. The first speaker said, whatever you do in Nigeria, if Nigeria decides to buy your product, definitely Africa has gotten your product. We have this kind of oversized influence around our neighbors that whatever we accept, it goes viral. If it's a product, everyone needs to use it because it's raining in Nigeria. So it is important if you're coming into Africa, whether you test in Rwanda, you test in Kenya, find a way to get a piece of the Nigerian market. You won't regret that. Let's double up. I want to, so these are investment areas. I want to touch on the key part, the number 2. We have a lot of fintechs, agri-tech, health tech, but we don't have the infrastructure, the tech infrastructure to carry on with these innovations. There are not enough data center because of power issues, and the IT infrastructure is still being controlled by external investors who don't have local presence here. We still host our servers outside the country. So we need a homegrown solution, or we need a solution that is domiciled here, especially on the infrastructure part. Because of this infrastructure, you are going to drive a whole lot. We still have some limitations around the penetrations of the fintech innovations, the agri-tech, the health tech, but with proper infrastructure, digital infrastructure, a whole lot can be done. So the tech infrastructure gap is estimated to be $4 billion. So it is important that this infrastructure will drive the innovations. So for me now, if I build an app, whatever the app is for, I'll have to host it outside Africa, most possibly. My data will be stored outside here. My host can decide to switch it off anytime. That is a big impediment to the progress that's going on here. And the pricing structure is not tailored towards what we have here. So a solution that caters for that need, the infrastructure need, will go a long way. Renewable energy is still a growing concern for us in Nigeria. So these are opportunities out there and I've looked at the solutions you have. Most of the solutions address these critical areas. So let's move to the next slide. This is just a summary of the startup ecosystem in Nigeria. As at 2024 December, startups in Nigeria, they've raised more than $2 billion. We have very successful startups in fintech. We have the Flutterwave, Paystack, InterSwitch, Kuda Bank, Carbon. In e-commerce, we have the Jumia Konga, clean tech, agri-tech, Thrive, Relief. I see Relief. I think there is a company that is in this program that is called Relief, but they are doing different things. But this Relief is driving solution towards agribusiness sector. I know the Relief I saw is trying to use dead brown leaves to make eco-friendly materials. But so we have a whole lot of thriving ecosystem. And to cap it up, these fintechs, these agri-tech, they are not just owned by a local business partner. They are owned by partners from outside the country, and a lot of investment is pouring into Nigeria. So for you to have this, it means that the local ecosystem is really thriving. The startup ecosystem is really thriving, and I'll tell you why it is like that when we go to the next slide. Can we move? Yeah, so practically, if you want to enter into the Nigerian market, after you've done your research, please localize your plan. Don't be like us that felt like this community needed water, so we are going to give them water, not knowing what they really needed. And like the first presenter said, we have a whole lot of, in Nigeria alone, we have over 500 languages, 200 ethnic nationalities. So we are very diverse. The solution you build for Nigeria may not easily be acceptable or may not be what is needed in the East Africa. The solution you make for North Africa may not exactly be what you will need for Southern Africa. So it is important you localize your solution. You can just, a little tweak will make that. The need for a local team, Mo Salah has said that you just cannot do business in Nigeria without having a local team. I don't know how you can achieve that. And this has been made very easy. Raising a local team is very easy now because of the structure we have on ground. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So I want to touch on number 4, step 4, which is what I mentioned. If you are coming from Ukraine to do business in Nigeria, we already have Ukraine-Nigerian Business Council. That should be your first call. It helps you with recruitment. It helps you with registration. It helps you with guidelines. There are a lot of businesses in Ukraine doing business in Nigeria, from Ukraine doing business in Nigeria. So we have the Ukraine-Nigerian Business Council. This will be your first call. It is a practical step, whether you want to sell online, digital service, whatever solution you want to do, get in touch with the Ukraine-Nigerian Business Council. You can find them in Kiev, Nigerian Embassy in Kiev. You can go to Foreign Affairs Ministry of the Ukraine. You'll get all the necessary information. This will save you the trouble of having to do everything yourself. A lot of structure has gone into this. I just want to highlight that Ukraine-Nigerian Business Council. So can we move? Yes. So this is the game changer. This is why you should invest in Nigeria. We have what we call the Startup Nigerian Act, which has become a law. This Startup Nigerian Act has really opened the startup space. We now have a dedicated government agency to cater for your needs. And you can take advantage of the numerous opportunities through the Startup Nigeria. We have enabling, take out your returns anytime you want it because the law has stipulated that. So the startup law makes investment, repatriation of funds, all of that incorporation, tax issues, local representation. There's what we call local content. All of that harmonized together in the startup law. This is the big changer. This is the difference between the different ecosystems in Africa because the Startup Nigerian law has made it very easy. Just by a click of a button, things begin to happen for you. It's important to equally state that there are over 200 Ukrainian businesses operating in Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria is the largest consumer of Ukrainian wheat because when the war started, the cost of bread went high because we couldn't get enough wheat from Ukraine. We have Gigi, a classified online marketplace, is owned by a Ukrainian company. USPA fruit, most of the fruit we consume here comes from Ukraine. We have EDS. EDS is playing in the renewable energy sector. They just launched and invested huge money, present in Abuja, my city, and in Lagos. So we have top businesses already offering wonderful solutions. So coming into Nigeria, because of these enabling laws, you can put in your money is safe, and it will multiply in no time, and you can take it out whenever you want because of this startup law. And the relationship, we have more than 7 bilateral relationships between Nigeria and Ukraine, trade agreements, bilateral relationships. We have all of that on ground, and that is what led to the Nigerian-Ukrainian Business Council. So Gigi is one of the top e-commerce company in Nigeria. It's owned by Ukrainian company. Can we move? Yes. So in conclusion, Nigeria is the place to be, is the place to come do your business. If you are thinking Africa, like the first speaker said, if you are thinking scale, come to Nigeria. And remember, every scale is everything in business, and where your investment is secured, where the ecosystem has matured and can take in your investment and can reproduce whatever effort you put in there, Nigeria is the best place to be. So I will still be around to take on questions. I will be on to take on any concerns. If you need any specific information on Nigeria, how to break in, I will be here to guide. So Anastasia, I think that's all. Did I use my time? I think I have a lot of time left. So
You did it perfectly.
yeah.
I have a question. Actually, I really loved an example of the solution for water, and then your explanation what was behind it. So you thought one thing, and then as it appeared, there are different problems. What would be your suggestion? And also, when you explained like what we need to do step by step, the first thing was that we need to understand the market and the target audience, which is like obvious. But what would you recommend for us to understand the behavioral patterns, to understand what is staying behind, something that we can see on the surface, and what would be the best approach to analyze more deeply what stands behind? Or is it just like test and try and fail and try again? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Depending on the solution you're building, nothing is actually new. You would have had stories from different founders who are doing similar things. I prefer, we have a lot of agencies that can do analysis on market behavior, help you to understand the cultural context. That was why I was emphasizing on the relationship, what we already have on ground between Nigeria and Ukraine, the offices, the government agencies who are really doing so much. So you don't really need to come down and live in Nigeria to understand Nigerians. You just need to pay attention to the informations available. Let me give you an instance. Someone was building an app that will connect farmers directly to bulk buyers, companies. So farmers who produce millet in large quantity and maize can directly sell to manufacturing companies without going through any middleman. So now what they did was they built a wonderful app. They were coming from US. They built the app, and the app was quite data consuming. So it was not good for the rural areas. The solution they want to use an app to solve could just be solved by a simple USD code. I type it on my smartphone, like we said, and I get connected to a buyer, and we begin to have a discussion. So it will be important to really know, if I'm interested in the fintech space, I need to know what is happening, what is the gap. From the gap, what is the response to what is already being done? Let me give you another instance. Currently, there are more than 50 million Nigerians outside Nigeria. They bring it money, funds from abroad, and there is a problem of money transfer. There is a problem of transborder financial services. So if I want to build a solution for that problem, I wouldn't be looking at those in Nigeria. I'll be looking at Nigerians outside Nigeria. So it all depends on who you want to build for. Look at the existing solutions, see where you fit in, how you can improve on that. And I can't really begin to say, do this, do that, because there are different things to do for different solutions that you are trying to provide. I'll be glad to get into specifics to see the steps we need to take. Like if you are doing fintech, whatever level of fintech you're doing in Nigeria, you must be registered with the Central Bank of Nigeria. You must be licensed. You can't even do a demo without the license.
By the way, our next speaker will talk about fintech solution. So we'll dive deeper into all what they needed to go through in order to like expand to this market. And last quick question would be about trust. Like as I realize, in Nigeria, for instance, the level of in order to be present there, you don't just need to have a good solution and needed solution addressable to problems, but you also need to gain trust from like local stakeholders. What is your perception on it? Like, how would you like suggest approaching this thing? Is it either, for instance, for Ukraine-Nigerian Council that you mentioned, or would it be, I don't know, securing some advisors or investors local that would gain you an access and more, become more reliable? So
If you want to, okay, the first thing to begin with, you already have, that has already been sorted. The Ukrainian embassy in Abuja does that excellently well. If you contact the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Kiev and you come down to Abuja, the Ukrainian consul in Abuja, the consulate here, has all of that. They will help you with connecting you to the local partners. They will help you pointing you to the right person. There is a bit challenging, something challenging that founders do. We believe our solution is the best. We don't need anybody. We have it all figured out, and we neglect these players around. Trust me, what the Ukrainian embassy in Abuja can do for you, a consultancy firm in Abuja can do it for you in 2 years. So why do you need to go through all that pain when the solution has already been provided? There's a business desk dedicated to expanding Ukrainian businesses in Nigeria in Abuja. I have had interaction with them. So whatever solution you're bringing, they will take you by hand to all the local players and make sure you follow the right steps and get started. So you have an advantage coming into Nigeria.
I think that was like a precise step-by-step plan for our Ukrainian entrepreneurs. And I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your insights. I'm sure like it's not, this video will be also uploaded on YouTube and a lot of people will be able to access it and watch it later as a guide for their expansion. So be prepared for some LinkedIn inquiries. Hey, can you just please specify? You mentioned this and that. But really, we appreciate you being here and sharing your expertise with us.
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And dear participants, we're moving forward. And right now, we talked a lot today about the fintech solutions. And we've decided to invite Ukrainian entrepreneur who is Lyudmila Timoshenko, and she's developing an Agri-Analytica. It's a fintech tool for like local farmers, and it's a huge ecosystem of different solutions inside. And with Lyudmila, we'll have like 15 minutes fireside chat with questions and answers about their local experience. So Lyudmila, happy to see you and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, Anastasia. Hello, everyone. My name is Lyudmila Timoshenko, and I'm founder and CEO of fintech company, Ukrainian fintech company. And during the last 6 years, we are developing agri-finance ecosystem platform to help farmers build the world and through access to finance, market, and knowledge. Our platform includes today. Our platform includes AI-powered agro-MSME financial inclusion solutions, such as 4 marketplaces. It's agri-financing, agri-trading, agri-shopping, and agri-expert, and 3 online products such as agri-accounting, agri-business plan, and agri-credit analysis and risk assessment tools. Our target market is micro and small farmers across Ukraine and all over the world. We are a winner of in last year. We received from SME Finance Forum, Global SME Finance Forum, the awards as for the Innovation Product of the Year, and it's I can say that maybe it's also help us to move to Africa, because our first step was an invitation from our partners from Kenya, whom we met through this forum in São Paulo, where we received this award. And we communicated with them before a lot. We studied each other possibility and the needs for their markets, and we moved to Kenya, and we were inspired to explore Africa, because many agro MSME in both Ukraine and Africa face similar challenges, like limited access to finance, markets, and knowledge. So it is our first experience, and we are very inspired to do it together with our colleagues from Kenya.
Ludmila, thank you for an intro. Like, basically, you've covered first few questions that I had in mind for you. So did I understand correctly that it wasn't your prime target to enter Kenya, but it was more than a suggestion from a partner to enter this market? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It was suggesting, it was our partner helped us to make this choice and to make this first steps.
And what exactly like inspired you to explore Africa as a market for your business? Because the suggestion might be good, but we as Ukrainians, this is not a key market that we would like basically choose. So why have you decided to take this risk, to take this opportunity and enter Kenyan market and start exploring this?
No, first of all, maybe because, as I said, that we are developing not only one fintech products for the market, but we are developing a comprehensive agro-financial ecosystem platform, which help farmers all over the world, because this solution, this standard solution, it works in any markets, and we know a lot about we knew a lot about African markets, and we knew that, for example, the financial inclusion, it's very important for this countries, and always we thought about this possibility, and we have a lot of partners, and we discussed a lot this possibility. And when we actually when we find this our new partners, very serious partners from Kenya banks and from Kenya agrarian cooperative associations. So we thought, why not? And we moved, no, also because in Ukraine now it's maybe for startup not so many possibilities. So we understood to move Africa, because it's a new possibility, it's new experience, and it was interesting for us. And of course, because Africa has 1.5 billion people with fast-growing economies, and many African challenges are similar to Ukraine ones, especially when we speak about micro and small farmers. So Africa has a large population, a rising middle class, and increasing demand for technology, financial services, which we can provide them. And of course, sustainable solutions such we can propose for this market. So strong demand exists for agriculture expertise as such we have, and we thought that why not we need to experience to have this new experience.
I think it's also very interesting that you have like a mixture of fields. So you have a fintech solution, but in agriculture. So as we heard today, these are like fintech and also agriculture are the key sectors for development in Africa. So do you feel that it helps you get an easier access and an entrance? And as I know, and we spoke on the fintech workshop, right? There is a lot of like legislations and entry points in government and in different like like structure wise how the market is operating, because you need an access to data, right, in order to run your solution. So do you experience any difficulties with these, or do you feel like thanks to partner and thanks to local government, it actually helps you like operate and have it running your solution?
Thank you, Anastasia, for this question. Yes, of course, we understand it and we feel it is that big differences between doing business in Ukraine and Africa, and we were prepared for this. For example, when we speak about regulatory environment, for example, in Ukraine, it's everything. It's more clear regulatory frameworks, and this frameworks close ties to European standards, especially with EU. But in Africa, varies widely by country. And there was different regulations. But if we were targeted to Kenya, so we research a lot about this regulatory environment, which is was more complex and challenging to navigate for us, and also it's a little bit not maybe not little, but big difference. For example, different culture, formal business culture with established networks, for example, particularly in agriculture and IT in Ukraine and in Africa, because in Africa, strong emphasis on relationships and local partnerships and business practices. From our point of view, big variety greatly between regions and sectors, and it demanded from us very big research and a lot of discussion from our with our local partners about how we can do our first step on that market. So it was not easy.
Not easy. Totally get it. Just a second, I'll ask my colleague Alexandra, if you're here, can you turn off the screen so that we can see just Ludmila? Perfect. And you've started mentioning the challenges that you had, like you had to do a proper research, establish some more deeper connections. What are other challenges that you faced that you didn't foresee coming, but then you faced them and you had to deal with them? Can you share with us some challenges?
One of the challenges, maybe nice challenges, it was local partnerships, because respecting and understanding diverse culture and business practices across African country has been for us key to forming successful partnerships. And as I said, it was the first step with our very important partners which we communicated last time 2 years. And then with their help, we found strong local partners, another local partners who understand their market and our joint markets deeply, and they helped us understand the market and adapt our solutions to this market. And we focused on solving a real problem faced by African farmers, as I said, with access to finance, markets, and knowledge, and not just only selling our technology, but it was not so difficult for us. Why? Because we propose a comprehensive solution which consists, we have e-commerce, we have agri-expert marketplace, we have agri-financing marketplace, we have some tools which helps our partners have a deal which is other in win-win way. So it was not so difficult, but very challenging for us. And of course, we were needed to adapt our solution and hear feedback from our partners and adjust, adapt, and make a lot of homework in order to fit more their needs.
As I understand correctly, like your go-to-market strategy was and is successful because of the partnership. And is it your, like, first question, is it your main, like, stream, of actions? So you do, one partner introduces you to another partner and so on and so far? Or is there any like local business support services or grants or governmental initiatives, programs that you have applied or considered applying to that can also, give you more penetration and perspective on it?
Thank you, Anastasia, for this question. Of course, I can say that we moved in parallel. For example, first of all, we have a very strong support from our main partners, and of course, we research every way which can help us to move. We are working with different associations. We are working, we research constantly government programs and other maybe programs or grants for support such kind startups as our startups, and it helps us a lot in our journey in Kenya.
And any final tips, any, I don't know, websites or tools or events, programs, whatever that might be like your best recommendation for Ukrainian startups and startup founders who are just considering entering these markets that you might share with us?
I would like to say that first of all, I would like to say maybe the same tips as previous colleagues said before me, but almost the same. So it should to be first of all market research, very precise market research. So you need to identify which African countries have the demand for your product or services, and understand local market dynamics. You need to understand and research a lot of regulations, especially if you are fintech or maybe some other technology startups. You need to be familiarized with local laws, business registration, taxes, and trade regulations. You need, from my point of view, it's very, very important. You need to build local connections. So for this, you need to establish local relationships with partners, suppliers, distributors to gain insights and facilitate market entry with this. You need to adapt your offerings because, as my previous colleagues said, that you need not to think that your product should be the same and take it and put in Africa, and because you need to adapt your offerings, you customize your products or services to fit local preferences, local cultural nuances, local fit and purchasing power. And of course, you need, first of all, you need to make a pilot maybe and test and start with a small program, and in this way you need to make a small scale entry to test the market before scaling operation. And maybe, as you said, you need to test and try and fail in and try again, something like that, because it's for each startup it's a little bit different, but in any case it may be and it should to be a success journey, inspiring and success journey for each
So basically, thorough research, localization of the product, then trials on the local market with the partners, and then partners, as many like local representatives and connections as you might have, right?
Yeah, adapt your products and hear the needs from your target clients and develop in this way.
Ludmila, I appreciate our conversation and you sharing experience, how it was for you and how it is going for you. We wish you all the luck that we can for you to succeed and for you to expand more and more and to show Ukrainian innovations on African market in Kenya and other countries as well. This was Lyudmila Tymoshenko from AgriAnalytica, and we are moving forward and I'm giving the word to my colleagues. Alexandra, if you can take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Lyudmila and Anastasia, and what
Thank
an
you.
amazing start we have had today. But we're continuing to our next session, which is going to be an interactive panel discussion about the different ecosystem, both in Rwanda, Nigeria, and Kenya, and what kind of innovations that are needed, as well as different challenges. And for this one, please ask as many questions as you want in the chat. I will check the chat, but hopefully I also get some help with my colleagues to monitor it. And now I just want to present our esteemed panel for the day. So first off, I want to present Kenny Kariku, co-founder of Impact Hub in Kenya, in Nairobi, as well as Director for Science Kenya. And then I want to also present Karis Mansi, Director of Innovation and Growth at Impact Hub Kigali, and Kigali is a part of Rwanda, just for information. And the last one, I want to represent Agwo Kali from Recycles, Level Up Recycles. I'm so happy to have this panel with you. And I'm going to start with, can you all please turn on your cameras and your mics as well? Thank you. So I want to start with you, Kenny. Do you just want to briefly present yourself and what you're doing?
Sure thing. My name is Kenny Kariuki. I'm an agricultural political economist based here in Nairobi, one of the co-founders of Impact Hub Nairobi, and as mentioned, the director of CEO with a legal background. What we do, of course, as an Impact Hub, we work with social entrepreneurs to assist them, be they local, international, towards basically their goals. We sit in between as an ESO, entrepreneur support organization, to get everyone from A to B, whatever that journey looks like. We offer business development services, we offer accelerators and incubators, and we work one-on-one with all our folks who require that to ensure that within our spaces, because we have about 4 or 5 locations here in Nairobi, and just within, even just online, if you're based somewhere else, that we can actually meet your compliance needs, your business needs, etc. I'll stop there.
So it sounds like you're a great partner if someone wants to expand to Kenya. And I want to continue to Karis. Do you also want to briefly introduce yourself before we start?
Thank you, Alexandra. Hi, Kenny, and hi, Des, and I don't know who else I know from the room, but hello, everyone. My name is Karis Manzi, based here in Kigali with the Impact Hub Kigali. We are an ESO entrepreneur support organization that's been in our local ecosystem since 2015, and we provide very tailored acceleration support for startups that want to scale their solutions and impact. And we do that through tailored technical and financial support with different development partners that we work with. And we're a bit sector agnostic, but we do have some of the biggest programs in agriculture and food systems and circular economy. Happy to chat with you today.
Thank you so much. And Ibe, you have already presented yourself, but I'm so happy that you're joining us once again. And maybe just if someone missed you, maybe someone joined later, just want to briefly present yourself as well.
My name is Abu Kalibe. I'm the founder of Level Up Recycle Plus Limited Nigeria. So we are a waste management company, turning waste to useful products. I think that's just the summary. So, and I'm your good guy for if you want to come to Nigeria, we're available to give you all the help you need. So I think that's that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I want to start with you, Kenny. So you talked briefly about how you in Nairobi can support, but can you tell me more about your work and how you support startups more concretely?
Yes, the way we support startups truly is in basically I would say in a multifaceted way. We have some startups that come to us as a result of a donor wanting a program, sort of an incubator, accelerator within various subject matter, everything from agriculture, circularity, waste management, depending on what the call is for. Then we have folks who join us for trainings, for coaching, mentorship. We have connections to great networks and basically providers in all those sectors. And we also have folks who just come and say, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm self-funded, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Can you assist me? Where you are, it doesn't matter if you're at ideation or even if you're more advanced in terms of maybe several years of operation and exceptional revenue. We basically plug you in with our experts and our partners, because I've heard partners today. And throughout that, what happens is we foster relationships, everything from, shall I say, compliance to fundraising. So I'd say beyond that, of course, yeah, I can stop there.
Yes. Just a comment from the chat from Dennis. Impact Hub in Nairobi is basically an entrepreneur's heaven. So that's
sometimes we hope so.
And Karis, do you want to continue? How is it in Impact Hub in Kigali in Rwanda?
Awesome. Yes. So actually, maybe you may have talked about this. Impact Hub Nairobi is, say, a brother. So we're both part of the Impact Hub network, and we do kind of provide similar flavors of support to entrepreneurs. But maybe to speak a little bit more contextually for Rwanda, for the methodology that we look at, we support entrepreneurs through what we call programs. So we design specific programs with partners, and these programs can be supporting anywhere from early stage to growth stage, and providing any of the areas of support that maybe Kenny mentioned. That could be financial management, that could be investment readiness, that could be market access, that could be looking at partnerships that help you to scale. And we look at tailored support. So we do what we call diagnostics to identify specific gaps that the startups have. And then we're able to tailor what we call support packages to address those specific gaps. And that usually goes along with financial support that is dispersed in a way, looking at specific milestones that the startup is able to achieve. And then we look at the element of the ecosystem support as well. So we try to do, for instance, peer-to-peer sessions, looking at supporting entrepreneurs to connect with previous cohorts or even different cohorts. That could be both here in Rwanda or in the region through other Impact Hub that are providing similar support, similar programs. And we look to also build communities of practices which look at strengthening the entire ecosystem along specific themes. That could be, for instance, a circularity theme, looking to bring together the different players in the circularity ecosystem to not only learn together, but also exchange and connect and build trust and share opportunities, all that to support the entrepreneur in the end. Yeah, maybe also start there.
No, but that's amazing to hear. I love to hear that you're both working so holistically with the different entrepreneurs and startups. And I wanted to ask you, Karis, like, what specific sectors do you see are currently booming in Rwanda? And do you think there are any sectors that are specifically underserved by the foreign market and where we can get in?
So with Rwanda, so we are at an amazing time where everything is growing. So really, any sector you look at, there's a whole lot of opportunities that remain untapped or that have a lot of potential. But being a small country, there's a whole lot of focus on tech and tech-enabled solutions. And that could be cross-cutting any sector, really. So as long as it's an ICT solution that could be applied to really any sector, whether that's agriculture or anything else, or education. These are solutions that one can be scalable and that are being supported, and there's different support mechanisms to support. So you can look at, let's say, ICT as one sector with a whole lot of cross-cutting sectors. But there's also a mention around, let's say, tourism and hospitality. We're positioning ourselves to attract a lot of tourism and grow the hospitality industry. So there's a whole lot of infrastructure that is being put in place by the government to attract, let's say, conferences and events. So there's a whole lot of opportunity there. But then agriculture, as is true for the entire continent of Africa, there's a whole lot of opportunities in agriculture, whether that's looking at mechanization or input in general, or like post-harvest losses or access to market. There's still a whole lot of things that can be done along the different value chains in agriculture. And financial services as well. We're positioning ourselves to be the kind of financial heaven of the continent. So we recently set up a few years ago the Kigali Financial Center, and that allows a lot of investments to come in. So there's a lot of opportunities for startups that are in the fintech space as well. And I think energy as well. So looking at electrifying the different, let's say, even mobility. For instance, just a quick recent example, the government, starting this year, 2025, there is no more imports of non-electric bicycles, motor bicycles. So there's a whole lot of opportunity, for instance, to bring in e-bikes into the country. So just to name a few of the different sectors that are ripe for opportunity.
Super interesting, and interesting with the e-bikes as well. I know it's similar in places in China, actually. And Ivo, you have been talking about the different sectors like agriculture and infrastructure and fintech in Nigeria as well. And we have also been discussing the importance of having a local partner. Can you give us some tips on how can we find a local partner in Nigeria? And do we need the government as well, or is it mostly private agencies? What do you think, Ivo?
You need an intersection of both. For Ukrainian startup, one thing to do something in Nigeria, you will need a local private partner and the government side. For you to even set out, like I said earlier, begin to talk to the Ukrainian embassy, they will have all the guidance. But there are a lot of accelerator programs, there are a lot of incubation going on. Little ecosystems around Lagos and Abuja, they're doing extremely well. No matter where you're coming from in the world, you can be part of it. It is easier to scale if you're part of a local ecosystem, startup ecosystem. So I think the latest startup law that was just signed has made it very easy for you to get a local partner. So if you want to come into the Nigerian market, haven't developed your product, there are, in Abuja alone, there are more than 17 of those agencies, private individuals doing something around accelerator programs, just like Impact Hub is doing. We have It's also in Lagos. Those are the key first people to get local partners. Then on the government side, it used to be complicated before. There are a lot of certifications, there are a lot of things that go on you need to get, but now it has been streamlined. The DEX office has made it very simple. Before, you needed like 10 different certifications to come into Nigeria, but now all of them are now put into one place. When I wanted to do business with a Chinese company, that was 2012. We'll have to go to the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, Bank of Agriculture, we'll go to NOTP. When we were going all around, we were just tired. We said, let's just get done with this. But now, all of that is just one office at the click of a button. All of that will come. So get in touch with the different local ecosystems doing accelerating businesses. Then coming through your government, it makes it easy to enjoy the benefits that are already available for Ukrainian businesses in Nigeria. That is just very easy now. It has been made very, very easy.
Thank you. And it sounds crazy before how many steps you need to pursue
It
with
was
very
crazy. It was
bureaucratic.
crazy, yeah.
And maybe especially because I know in Ukraine they're very digitalized, and what I've heard at least it's less bureaucracy. And Kenny, could you also just give us a brief overview about the Kenyan markets and like what emerging trends that are happening in Kenya that excites you the most?
Yes, I think the emerging trends, I think, have been perpetuated over the last decade. You find that, unfortunately, I think our public sector isn't as exciting as Rwanda's or Nigeria's. However, the issue is the fact that there is a need. And if where there's a need, that means the private sector can get involved. And not only is that need basically, shall I say, prevalent in the market, there's also space for innovation. So I'd say that Kenya is when hopefully some folks come and visit for investment and other opportunities, they will see that it is a space where it is friendly to private investment. However, at the same time, we are also, I think there's a lot of funding that comes from, especially for startups, from the international community, donors, etc. And when you look at this funding, you might find that it follows certain trends. And those trends, I would now argue, are sitting within what has been mentioned by my brothers here. Everything from e-mobility. Do you find that circularity, especially when it comes to waste management, is something that people look at? Folks in agriculture never stops. This is ag tech, this is ag digital, this is ag finance. Those are continuous spaces where funding comes. There have been changes in funding, especially more recently. However, I'd say when it comes to the environment, it is an easy environment to begin a business. It is also very competitive, especially if you come into the sections or sectors I've just mentioned. However, some people here on the call might or the panel listening in might be coming in to do something more commercial. And when it comes to commercial propositions, once again, it's just like spoken by other speakers, it's all about your partnerships, it's your landscape analysis. But I'd say the Kenyan market is open and vibrant. However, it is sometimes slightly saturated if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know who your customer is. So those are some pointers.
Thank you, Kenny. I understand it's very saturated because it's a very attractive market, but you still see any sectors that are underserved that we could tap into, or is the whole market very saturated?
One of the previous speakers talked about the comparative advantage Ukrainian entrepreneurs have when it comes, especially in the agricultural sector. And when you think about that, I would say that is especially if you're coming to Kenya to do business, agriculture and especially agricultural region. And when you talk about circularity in agriculture, when I say region, I'm talking about everything from syntropic farming, folks who are doing circularity in terms of, so I say, fertilizers that are organic, foliars, etc. You find that that is a niche greenfield market where if you were to combine that with some kind of digital component and it were able to scale to demonstrate, because right now the key conversation in agriculture is about soil, at least in East Africa. I'm not too sure about the rest of the world, but I can talk about soil and soil health and how to address degrading soils. If it's in the ASL region, that is basically our arid and semi-arid regions, or if it's even in areas where there's just actual desertification, even just in healthy regions like in Kenya's islands where you have tea growing, etc. The key thing is if you can address soil health, you can then address seeds, yields, etc. So I'd say if you're asking me what the most niche and space would be, it would be there probably. Yeah.
No, but I think that's an amazing answer. And I've also heard similar that our soil quality in general is going down, and this is a big issue. So listen up, all entrepreneurs, for some inspiration. And Kares, is there any industries in Rwanda that you would say is similar, very like niche, untapped potential?
Yes, thanks, Alexandra. Yes, there's quite a lot of different industries that are still untapped, I think. Also because when you look at the entrepreneur ecosystem in Rwanda, it's still relatively new. So everything really is fresh and there's a whole lot of excitement. So one that tells you that almost any solution that's innovative, especially innovative in our local context, is needed and can go and can be deployed to the market. But in addition to maybe what the other panelists are saying, which I think I'm realizing there's a lot of similarities on the continent. I would add, let's say, maybe like healthcare. I think there's a lot of opportunities in healthcare, whether that's looking at digitizing how hospitals work, how they store and maybe potentially even share patient records. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Telemedicine as a whole, I think, is also something that's relatively new here. Medical training platforms, what have you. I think there's a whole lot of opportunities in healthcare. I would also add maybe in education. Looking at edtech, I think there's still a scarcity of innovative edtech solutions. And there's a whole lot of opportunities there for anyone I don't know if in the room here we have anyone doing edtech solutions, but there's untapped potential in our education sector. Any other solutions that can fall under green, circularity, sustainable solutions, I think, like my fellow panelists were saying, there's still a lot that can be done, a lot that can be introduced in our markets. And what's special about Rwanda as well, I think it's, as we do have a small population, we have about 13 million people. But the government, for instance, has made it very easy to set up a business and hit the ground running. So what that tells you is that it's very easy to come and set up here with view of potentially then capturing the entire, let's say, East African market, regional market. So we come with your innovative solutions, set up in under 6 hours, you would have the business set up already, and you get to testing. So we like to look at ourselves as a testing ground with view of expanding and capturing the entire regional market. Yeah.
Sounds amazing that it's so easy to set up a business. It can be really beneficial for the long term. And Ibe, you were discussing a bit earlier that before it was more bureaucracy in the Nigerian market, but would a foreigner still face any challenges when it comes to like the regulatory landscape and different kind of visas you need?
All right. At this point in time, they've reduced actually. The game changer for us was that startup law. Like I keep saying, it really made a lot of difference for us. It's just what we need to correct is the misconceptions that we've had over the years. Let me just give an instance. A business wanted to come into Nigeria from UK. So the advice they gave him was just make sure a politician is on your board. If a politician is on your board, then you will have it easy. So he didn't do the things that he needed to do. One of it is certificate of capital importation that you need to have before you bring in money into the country. And that is the certificate you will need when you want to draw your proceeds. So they told him, just have a politician on your board and everything is settled. Unfortunately, he came in with a politician on his board, and when the time came to draw his proceed, he couldn't because he didn't have the right registration. He didn't have the right documents. So currently, if people get the right information, a lot has been streamlined. I'm happy to hear that Rwanda, in 6 hours, you can set up a business. And we are not yet there here, but it's not how it used to be. Everything you needed has just been put in one basket and handed over. Where foreigners have problem is when they want to circumvent the rules, when they don't want to follow the procedure. But now it has been made so easy for us as a country. We are going all over the world begging for investors to come in. So we have made it easy for investment to settle, have root, and you make something out of it. So they are not what they used to be before. The hurdles has been reduced, but I want to highlight, before you even step out to begin a business or to start moving into Nigeria, do your little background check. What are the basic certifications you need? What are the things you need before you now come into the local ecosystem to get going? An insurtech, a company that is doing something on insurance, didn't register with the Security and Exchange Commission, and they launched. After 6 months, they have to shut down because they didn't get it right from the beginning. So these they've been made very easy, and the conversation is still ongoing. Anyway, we identify a problem, we will speak to the government about it. Things are being corrected on the go.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm so happy to see like a still similar development that we see in Rwanda, in Nigeria, because it's always nice if you're a foreigner, if it's easier to start a business, of course. And Kenny, I wanted to ask you as well, like, how does it look in Kenya? And would you also like to mention some common mistakes that foreign entrepreneurs make when entering the market?
All right. I'd say the complexion in Kenya it's exciting. I think you might find in East Africa, I think I think Rwanda is probably the forefront when it comes to regulation and making it basically the ease of business. However, I'd say in Kenya, there is the capital, there are all the international institutions. Now, some of the biggest problems and some of the biggest issues that happen when you find folks coming in from other parts of the world is that they may come, and as mentioned by some of your previous speakers, is that you don't do your due diligence. Yeah, you don't take your time to actually ensure that, one, you understand what the market looks like, because as mentioned, Africa is more than 55 states or 54, depending on your politics. And essentially what you find is very quickly is that what might sell in Algeria might not sell in Egypt, what sells in Egypt might not sell in Kenya or even Congo. So first of all, understanding your market, and then of course, and I think everyone here is an entrepreneur, if they're in some form of sales or services, they understand this principle that you really have to do the work on the ground. And that also involves making sure that you have great partnerships and also working with local organizations and also with maybe Kenyans or Rwandese or Nigerians to ensure that you understand the local appreciation of what you're trying to do, if there's actually a need, if there's actually a want for your product. And because sometimes we get lost, at least sometimes we see with some entrepreneurs, that you come up with, you have a great product, but the market, it's not a need for the market, or it's not been wanted. So you might find that, yes, it's a great product, no doubt. It's a woolly sweater, but you're living in Mombasa and Mombasa is hot. And so you just don't make sales. So I would say the key principle would be to just essentially take it a step at a time. I'd say make sure you have the right partners, the right compliance, as mentioned by my brother previously, and that is your compliance in financial, understand your needs in legal, figure out what kind of capital outlay you'd want to have, what is the financial structuring of that, consider the tax environment. Does it make sense to have capital within, or do you want to have a proposition that's more dynamic? Maybe a tax haven like Mauritius, then or whatever your proposition will be. Will you have a vehicle? What kind of vehicle? And then after that, the scale in terms of how you want to scale over time. Are you going to have boots on the ground? who you're going to be hiring. If you're going to have boots on the ground, the key issue is, okay, what is the proposition when it comes to local, international? And I think overall, it's all about being sensible. It's about saying, if you have a care for your business, make sure you treat it like any other relationship in terms of, pace it, make sure you take the right steps, talk to ESOs in the market like ourselves, and we'll be basically helping you to make sure that you actually come at a point where it makes sense depending on your investment. But yes, key thing is due diligence and making sure you know.
But thank you very much for that description. And I want to ask you as well, Karis, we were talking about how easy it is to set up a business in Rwanda, but I guess there's still mistakes that are us foreigners do. Do you have any of those top of your mind?
Mistake. Yeah, just thinking. So I was when you look at, I think, startups that are trying to expand or scale or enter our markets, I think you can actually kind of walk backwards from what, let's say, Kenny was mentioning and highlighting. I think a startup that has not done this, it ends up being like mistakes or a failure. But let's say if you look at not understanding local context, if a startup has not taken time to understand local context, that will not go well, right? So for instance, that could translate into, let's say you have a product and you bring it to the market, but one, you find that the market doesn't really need that particular product. So that's one way that it leads to what you can call failure. But also, I think failure to adopt. So you bring a product, maybe it's the right product and it's addressing a need, but maybe you need to either pivot it a little bit or add like a feature if we're talking about a tech solution, right? And you're not able to do that, or you're not prepared to do that, and that may become a failure. As an example, for instance, if you come in and you're providing a digital amazing solution for farmers, for smallholder farmers in a region somewhere outside of the main city, and this digital solution requires a touch screen phone, which the smallholder farmers do not have. It means that you need to actually think about how do you actually turn that into a USSD offering. And if you're not able to do that, then your product kind of fails or your solution fails, but it was a need. So it's really understanding the local context and nuances and being able to not only make sure that the solution is the right solution for the market, but also it speaks to whatever is on the ground and the context and realities of the potential users. Another example is if you're developing a fintech solution, if instead of developing something completely out of regular use of people, you can think about, for instance, relaying that to some of the things that are already embedded in the local ecosystem. Let's say people using M-Pesa or Momo in Rwanda or Nigeria or Kenya. You can look at your solution kind of piggybacking on that because people are already familiar with using these tools, and you can develop an amazing solution. And then, a startup that has not done thought about potential partnerships, a startup that has not talked about other players in the sector they're entering, or like leveraged ESOs that are on the ground, or potential institutions that are on the ground, and speaking to them to understand where they can add value. I think they end up missing on potential opportunities and value they can create in the ecosystem. But yeah.
Okay,
to highlight a few.
Yeah, I want to thank you all. I think one common theme is that, like, please do your due diligence. As you said, there are many countries in Africa, so you can't just do like a broad go-to-market strategy. Try to find some local partners, and then we always, like you said, Kenny, you have to value, like, what do you need? Like in Rwanda, it's to set up a business. You mentioned Mauritius as a tax haven. So like really do your due diligence on what your needs is and how the different regions differs. Before we end, do all of you want to share like just one piece of advice for us who wants to enter your market, specifically our Ukrainian entrepreneurs? Maybe if you want to start, Ibe?
Mine would just be one word. Don't just build for Africa. Build for Africa from the lens of Africa. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs make the mistake of building solutions for other people from their own perspective. But no, build, in fact, not just for Africa, build solutions from the lens of the local market you want to serve. The kind of marketing I will put up in the southern part, even in Nigeria, the kind of marketing or campaign effort I will put out in the southern part of Nigeria, I may not be able to do that in the northern part. I might hit a lot of resistance to that. So if I was just doing planning for Africa from my own lenses, I would hit the wrong spot. So it is important that build solution, not just for Africa, but from the lenses of Africa. And I would like to add, build solution from the lens of an everyday local resident or local user of your product. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to do business in Nigeria. You can call on me anytime. We really want to move our relationship with Ukraine from just $195 million per year that we did last year. We want to move it up to $1 billion. And I know that there are startups here that will help us to do that. So
Yeah,
you're welcome.
you see, here you have a business partner. So please reach out to Eva if you want to expand to Nigeria.
Exactly.
Karis, do you want to tag on? What would be your one tip for the startups?
I'll actually give you two. So I think one, understand the local context. So build a solution, bring a solution that addresses a real need for the people on the ground, and then be open to collaborations, both local and regional collaborations.
Thank you so much. And to end this discussion, Kenny, do you want to share your advice with us?
Yes, I think mine will be the sum of what the parts have been shared. Essentially, I think you must be disruptive. If you come in, consider disruption and figure out what that disruption is by understanding your local context. I'd say if you want to be an entrepreneur, definitely consider also having positionality or even having physical presence of maybe staff or even yourself in East Africa or West Africa to ensure that you also understand and you're not just getting reports. So I'd say, my key thing is just what is said. Essentially, think about how context matters. Make sure you have a product that actually speaks to your local or clientele or just say market. And take risks and enjoy the journey of being an entrepreneur. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, all of you. I think this was a very interesting discussion, and we really learned, like I said, to the importance of having a local partner or staff or even physical presence, and also getting to know the market before you actually start. And so thank you, Kenny, thank you, Yvonne, thank you, Karis, for your wonderful input. And please, the startups, connect with them on LinkedIn. I was very happy to have you here today. And now we're going to continue our day. I'm just going to share my screen to a presentation by Remy Shukvanyuri. Please correct the pronunciation later. And this is one of my favorite topics, like I mentioned before. It's on impact-driven solutions in the local market. And now Remy is going to cover Nigeria. And Remy is an entrepreneur, startup ecosystem builder, as well as a business coach. So Remy, do you want to join me here on stage?
Great. Thank you, and good afternoon from Nigeria. Like she said, my name is Remy Chufunyere. I'm the Executive Director of the Wumba Center for Leadership Development in Africa. Okay, let me bring up my, okay.
And welcome, Remy. Nice to see you.
Very good, fantastic. Okay, so I was wondering why I was caught. Maybe I'm speaking for the last batch. I don't know, but that's fine. I'm happy that most of the speakers have done excellent job, especially my brother. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, especially my brother Ibe Carlo, who is also here with me in Abuja. Ibe, I celebrate you. Thank you so much for representing us very well. That's really amazing. Okay, so quickly, my job is almost done, just like I said, by eBay and the other amazing speakers from across the continent. So let me now talk from the ecosystem builder perspective, because I represent an organization that helps to raise startups in Africa. I'm talking about the Wumba Center for Leadership Development in Africa, of which I am the executive director. Yeah, just a brief about me. I'm sure you can see there. I also work with the founders layer as African ecosystem builder, policy advisor, IDX Ventures UK, and all of that. I've also had a few times working with the government where I served as Director General, Imo State Directorate for Employment, and Special Assistant on Job Creation and all of that. So these are some of the experiences that I've had over the years that put me in where I am today, doing the work of raising young people, especially young entrepreneurs, from the social impact perspective of helping to reduce the high unemployment rate ravaging the youth population in Nigeria. That's the major objective that we set out to achieve. And so we have a project that we call the Ubumba Enterprise Challenge, which is our annual startups development program powered by my center, the Leadership Center. Every year we admit over 1,200 young people from across the country, who engage in this challenge. We train them and also they pitch for our small grants. Then to do this, we partner with a number of organizations, including government agencies, universities. We work with the University of Abuja Enterprise Agency, and a number of others, including NGOs. So we work with them, and by the grace of God, since 2018, over 7,000 startups and SMEs have been supported, and that translates to over 20,000 jobs that we have created in Nigeria through this project. And so now, before I begin to talk about the impact ecosystem in Nigeria, I would like to give you, further reiterate on what my brother Carlo Ibe has already said. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa, and also has the largest economy. So what it means is that this is a fertile ground for businesses to thrive. And again, with a youthful workforce of over 60% of the Nigerian population, it means you have talent, people that can be engaged to do these services and businesses. So now, because we are with an ecosystem builder, I am going to focus more, or I have decided to focus more on some of the startups that we have incubated or that we have supported over the years. So from all the sectors that I have chosen to touch, most of the photos you see here and the names, they are some of the startups that we have worked with since 2018. So like I said, the Nigerian ecosystem is driven by initiatives that create positive social, economic, and environmental changes that foster sustainable development. And then let me take a look at a few sectors that are very, very prominent over the years, that have been consistent as we implement the startup program. And one of them is the renewable energy sector. Now, we discovered that over 50% of the startups that have joined the Enterprise Challenge, every year they come from the energy sector. And then what it means here is that even though Nigeria is facing serious energy challenges, we still have startups that are helping, to solve these problems. Then one of them is Greenbox Africa, Greenery Technologies, and One Grid Energies. If you look here, you'll see One Grid Energies. This is a startup funded by one of the young people that we have supported. And over the years, they have made so much impact. What I'm showing here now is one of their products. They convert waste lithium batteries, and waste plastic bottles into these solar lamps that you can see. They are using this and distributing them across communities, rural areas, to young people's children in primary schools who do not have electricity. So this is helping them to study at night and also helping to improve their livelihoods. Then here on top here is a startup that converts waste to energy. That is waste to light. Waste to light here, they convert waste into wind turbines that generate power. And that's very, very amazing. They have received support from Total Energies, I think 10 million naira last year, late last year. Then One Grid Energies also received a grant of 10 million naira from Tech Cabal Moonshoot in Lagos last year, the same last year. So that's I just picked a few of these on in the renewable energy sector to talk about them. Then let's go to the agricultural sector. I just decided to spotlight Scratop. Scratop is an amazing company that we supported. They convert bio waste into biofertilizers that is improving the soil fertility. That's also helping farmers produce better, have better yield. This is really amazing. The startup won $20,000 from Heifa International last year, and then the startup also won the Feed the Future Initiatives challenge in Denmark last 2 years. So these are that is to show that the innovation that they have brought into the the agri sector is making impact around the sector. Okay, so let me talk about. Let's go to financial inclusion. Then we have also supported a number of fintech innovations like Crediometer. Yes, this is Crediometer. They are helping the unbanked to have access to financial services. That is very seriously improving financial inclusion, to underprivileged and the rural communities. This is one of their credit cards. Then let me talk about the health sector. In the health sector, we have also supported a number of startups. One of them is called the Nextwear Technologies. Nextwear Technologies, invented a smart bra device that helps to diagnose breast cancer. So that because of how serious breast cancer is to women, so they have come up with this innovation that is helping women to be able to diagnose themselves, and so that early detection, they can easily handle the situation. Then we're also working with a telemedicine company called Mobi Health International. Mobi Health International, they are also doing amazing things, helping to reach people in the remote areas with healthcare services. Now, let me go to education. Education, so many startups have been supported, including the ones that are doing amazing things in Nigeria. Let me mention ULesson, Scholar, the one that we have supported. I decided to bring up Prodigy Solutions. Prodigy Solutions, that's here. Prodigy Solutions Suites is a management software for schools, universities. They are being used in Canada, UK, here in Nigeria, and some other African countries. It's a software that can handle all the management needs of any university, any secondary school around the world. They are doing very, very well, and that's why we decided to spotlight them. They have also won grants in the UK and elsewhere, but they were incubated by Goomba Leadership Center in 2019. Then I have, let's go to waste management and the circular economy. Here, I decided to spotlight the Upcycle Architect and Pop Plastic. Upcycle Architect, they turn non-bio waste into beautiful interior decors. In 2019, they won the first prize of 1 million naira, and since then, we have connected them to other investment opportunities in America. Today, they are exporting their products to America, courtesy of the support that we have given to the Upcycle Architect. Then pop plastic also converts plastics into shoe polish and other beautiful products that are in the market as we speak. Then talking about eco-friendly construction, this is Astrea. Astrea, they turn plastics into eco-friendly, all of these interlocking blocks and hydrophobic blocks. They convert plastics into these building materials, so that they're then helping to improve the building sector. Then sanitation, water and sanitation. This is another innovation from one of our startups called Lightning Arts. This is a water purification system that uses, they build clay pots and put the purification system in it so that it will be readily available to rural communities, people that cannot afford the dispensers and all of that. So they use this, put water in them, and it gets purified so that they can have potable water for drinking and all of that. Okay, let me quickly rush now. Okay, now we in the housing sector, this is also a sector that is very robust in the country. We have affordable housing and smart cities. I decided to spotlight GTEX Homes, even though it's not one of the startups that we supported, but we have also identified with them. So they help to build eco-friendly, they use eco-friendly and innovative materials to do their building projects that reduce the cost of the projects. Then I also decided to identify a number of social entrepreneurship organizations that are helping to support these startups. One of them, okay, here we have accelerators, incubators, and hubs, talking about the Women Enterprise Challenge, which is the one that I lead. Then you see Tony Elumelu Foundation, you see Co-Creation Hub, Lagos Innovates, Impact Hub Lagos, Impact Hub Abuja, and others. All of these, we work to support startups across the country. And by the grace of God, so many of them that have benefited from all of these initiatives, they are doing well today. They are helping to reduce the high unemployment rate that is ravaging the youth population. Then I also spotlighted some women organizations like Women Novate, Impact Hub, that we work with them, and they are helping us to train women that in the Wumba Women Academy Network. So that is for that. Let me now move into how to assess the impact ecosystem in Nigeria. Like Ibe said, and most other speakers, it's very, very important that you understand the ecosystem before you begin to invest or before you want to move into Nigeria to invest in Nigeria. Now, first of all, I said you need to conduct in-depth market research. This is very, very important. You need to understand the local challenges and then the opportunities that are available in the system. And then, so before you now decide what to come to do in Nigeria. Then this is also important, the consumer behavior, the purchasing power. And, for example, I spoke with some people last time, they want to introduce their projects in Nigeria. I think they are from, is it Ukraine? Yes, Ukraine. So now when I looked at the cost, I told them cost of subscription, if you want to do business in Nigeria, the cost of subscription is very, very high. This is not affordable by the ordinary Nigerian or by the startups, that are trying to find their feet. And so you need to understand that no matter how fantastic your idea or your project is, if it's not affordable by the people that you are targeting, I'm not sure you are going to do business here. Then again, you need to also understand the potential collaborators and the competitors that you have to, so that you can develop your own advantages over them. Then the issue of local partnerships cannot be overemphasized. It's very, very important. You need to collaborate with organizations like us, Wumba Leadership Center, Co-Creation Hub, Tony Elumelu Foundation, for networking and to also assist you with fundraising locally here. Very, very important. Then the another issue is the regulatory landscape. Very, very important. You cannot enter the market if you are not registered with the corporate affairs and other agencies of government that are relevant to the project that you want to bring in. Very, very important. Okay, then yeah, talking about local market conditions. This is also very important. You need to develop your project to suit the Nigerian, like I said this already, the Nigerian consumer behavior, and then affordability. Affordability is very, very important. If your product is not affordable by most Nigerians, it means you're only targeting the high class, and that number will be few, based on the market size. Then you need to also consider offline solutions where digital access is limited. Then the issue of USSD banking is very, very important. Just like Ibe also said, you can just use the code on your phone, even if it's the Nokia touch phone, use it and you do transaction and do your payment. That's also very important. Then talking about technology, good. Mobile first solutions work best in Nigeria due to high smartphone penetration and internet growth. Yes, as we speak today, there is high internet penetration across Nigeria. So it's an advantage for any startup that is coming with technology-based product or service. That is very fine. Then, yeah, hire and train local talent. Very, very important. For you to be able to navigate through the cultural issues, bureaucratic challenges, you need people on ground who understand the system, the ecosystem, so that they can help you navigate all of these challenges. Okay, good. Another thing is you also need to be resilient. You need to prepare yourself. There are so many challenges, bureaucracy, infrastructure-wise, and policy changes. Then the issue of currency fluctuations, the exchange rates, the dollar to naira, the naira to euro, and all of that. That is very, very important. And then the power shortages, very, very important. You need to prepare well if you want to do business in Nigeria, because you will surely meet some of these challenges when you come. Then, because of time, let me just quickly conclude. Like I said before, as Africa's largest economy and most populous nation, with over 220 million people, Nigeria offers opportunities for foreign investors to do business. So what you need is just to focus on the local needs, then leverage technology and build sustainable solutions that will make significant impact in our economy and then help you achieve your business success. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Remy. I got very inspired to hear that there are so many impact-driven solutions in every sector, almost like you mentioned so many of the sectors. And before we round up, I just want to ask you, like I said, we mentioned several examples, but do you have any favorite example that you want us to remember of an impact-driven solution in Nigeria?
Okay, like I said, all of these, most of the startups that I featured here, they are the ones that we supported. And as we speak, we are still following up with them, helping them, explore investment opportunities around the world. Like I said, these ones are doing very well. They are converting. It's going to be a massive breakthrough if you can generate electricity from waste products. That's what Waste to Light is doing, and that is really massive. Then for this one that is helping to convert plastics into solar lanterns that are being distributed across the country is also massive. They're also building mini grids and so many other things. Then, like I said, this one is scrapped up. They have the various prizes that they have won since inception in 2019 after being part of a program is the validation, of the profitability of this and the type of problem they are solving. They're helping to solve the food security issue that is in Nigeria with their biofertilizers. We're also talking about organic, going organic and all of that. So this is one of the what do you call it, innovative startups that is doing this in Nigeria as we speak today.
Thank you so much, Remy. You know, this inspires me to become an engineer almost. I love that there's so many physical products out on the market. Very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time. Me and the rest of the crowd have been super inspired. And like you also said, Remy, please connect with Remy on LinkedIn. I think you also shared the LinkedIn here in the chat as well. So thank you for that. And now we're going to continue to our last session, which is going to be the investment landscape panel. And I just want to present our panelists for the last session. So we have Yusuf Mutamba from Smart Africa. We have Olivia Gao from Verdot Kepler Africa Venture. And last but not least, Florent Newsenji from FP Capital. And please, all of you, come up on the stage with me and we can start our session. Hello, everyone. So I want to start with you, Yusuf. Do you just want to present yourself briefly and what you're doing?
Thank you, Alexander. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Yusuf Mutamba and currently working with Smart Africa in Kigali, Rwanda. So many of you must be wondering, what is Smart Africa all about? So Smart Africa is a Pan-African organization that comprises of 41 countries. And our key focus is basically to create a single digital market across the continent. But I happen to be working within the entrepreneurship unit, and my key focus is the Smart Africa VC Lab, and I'm currently taking lead on that. So what we're trying to do with the VC Lab is basically to capacitate fund managers on better ways on how they can mobilize and deploy capital more effectively across the continent. So the project is pretty much in its initial stages, but we'll be launching it during the Transform Africa Summit. So that is what I do much. So my focus is startup funding and investment, but mainly from the institutional and fund perspective.
Very interesting to have the institutional perspective here as well. And now I want to present Olivia. Do you want to please just briefly describe who you are and what you're doing? Or we can start with Florent, if you're here.
Sure, yeah. Happy to go next while I give some time to Olivia. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Yusuf, nice to see you again. Same for Olivia. Hopefully going to talk to you soon. And, so great to see so many familiar faces on the call. So yeah, my name is Florent Doyezu. Both names extremely hard to pronounce, so I go by Flo. Um, Originally from Burundi, but I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I work with a company called FP Capital. It's a fund investing in seed and Series A company across the continent. We focus on tech-enabled startups. But yeah, we're happy to do as much companies as we can, right? So trying to get things set up for now and looking for new opportunities, currently sourcing for new opportunities. So excited for the discussion and looking forward to it.
And sorry for pronouncing your name incorrectly, but welcome to the
Don't worry, Alexandra. Even me myself, I sometimes pronounce it wrongly, so it's all good.
And now, thank you, Olivia, for joining. Maybe I didn't give you enough time, but you're here now. Please introduce yourself shortly.
Yeah, thank you. And so sorry. I had so many tabs open. I just couldn't find which tab it was. So I could hear you, but just couldn't navigate. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Pleasure to be here and great to see many familiar faces. I'm Olivia Gao. I'm a senior associate at VCAF, and we are a Pan-African VC fund focused on Series A stage companies. We're $60 million in fund size, and we're actively deploying across the continent. Yeah, I'm usually based between Lagos and Cairo.
Amazing to hear that we have many, like two analysts working with Pan Africa, so we get the broader perspective. And Yusuf, I want to start with you. What kind of trends do you see in Africa in general when it comes to investment? What sectors are booming? Yeah.
All right, thank you. So when we talk about the African investment landscape, at the moment, I would say it's undergoing what I would call a transition phase. And before I get to the sectors and also the regions, what do I mean by this? So I'm going to use some facts and figures to give you context of what I'm trying to say, and specifically referring to last year, 2024. So in 2024, African startups raised, I think, close to $2.2 billion. And this was a 25% drop compared to 2023, where the startups raised about 2.2 billion. And this decline happened because the global VC market contracted, and Africa was no exception. And what basically this means is that global investors became more risk averse, and there were few larger deals than the previous years. And looking at where the money goes, it's still the big four markets, which is Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt. These are still dominant, and the reason being that they have strong startup ecosystems, large consumer markets, and also been working towards having more effective regulatory frameworks. Sector-wise, the fintech remains king, and it marks up about 47% of the total investment. But we're also seeing more interest growing in the climate tech, which now accounts for close to 32% of funding. But beyond that, we're also seeing innovation in logistics, there's health, there's deep tech. So while the market has slowed down compared to the previous years, there's a clear direction in where the investors see opportunity. And in just summary, so while the year was challenging, that is last year, the second half showed some positive momentum, and this kind of signaled that the market may be turning a corner heading into 2025.
Amazing to hear that there are also a lot of investment going to climate. That is from my perspective. I love that industry. And Florent, I wanted to ask you, how has the investment landscape, in your opinion, evolved during the past few years? Do you see any recent shifts?
Yeah, sure. I think there has been huge transition the last couple of years. I think in the early 2020s, so 2020, 2021, when the interest rate was still a bit low in the US, a lot of the American investors actually, came here with the promise of, good returns, huge returns, especially that, the zero interest rate era was at the peak. A lot of the investors really wanted to diversify their portfolio across the world. So we saw them, going to Southeast Asia, coming to Africa, right? And that, brought a lot of capital, back to what Yusuf was saying, right? I've been seeing a decline in VC money for the last couple of years. So yeah, that brought a lot of capital during those days. And I think there was a huge focus on fintech. There was a huge focus on logistics and e-commerce, right? And then what happened was that interest rates went up in the US, and because, now interest rates are 5 or 6%. If you really want to make a good return, you have to return at least 15, 16% on your fund, which wasn't possible anymore for most US-based investors. So that retracted capital, went back to the US, and then that left the market a bit less vibrant, but it's starting to pick up again. That coincided also with the fact that a lot of funds were, almost fully deployed around 2022. And that, brought up again a period of low investments in the space, right? So all these things, brought a really dry period in terms of investment in Africa. But right now, you're starting to see, a more vibrant ecosystem. Fintech is still at the top. Still seeing a lot of investment driven by fintech. And the reason for that is, the infrastructure layer for fintech is already established. You have the telcos who have been in Africa for the longest time. So that really helps to establish a fintech angle or fintech investment thesis compared to other sectors where, things like logistics, where roads and other infrastructures are not yet in place, which makes investments really, really hard in those kind of spaces. Most of the success stories actually we have seen in the fintech space because of those exact reasons, right? And you have also seen more recently a lot of investments in the climate tech space, and a lot of these investments are driven by, DFI being the main investors in funds have a strong mandate around climate tech and climate tech investment. So we have seen a lot of investment in that space. A lot of infrastructure is being built to support also that kind of system. So yeah, so fintech and climate tech in the last couple of years have been the new trend, I would say, compared to fintech and e-commerce and logistics previously. Right. So yeah, the infrastructure is obviously a key element. So we really need to see the infrastructure layer play out before we see the venture returns and venture scalable opportunities in the space.
Thank you so
Olivia,
much.
do you want to add something else?
No, I think you both said it all super well. I cannot agree more. I think when we talk about Africa, we quote two statistics. One is uh, increasing adoption of mobile or smartphones, and secondly is demographic. And if you combine the two, what it leads to is only mobile consumer tech. That is basically why fintech is the only probably promising or fastest growing vertical. And then to a point about climate, it's more driven by the supply of money. But demand is or innovations are catching up. But I would say probably the market led investment opportunities are still largely in the mobile consumer tech space.
Olivia, I found that super interesting. You were talking about that the supplier of the money, I guess the foreign investors, they're demanding the climate tech, while the market opportunities are a bit different. Do you want to expand a bit on that? Is there any more differences or?
Yeah, sure. About international interest, I think Florent also mentioned that there's a time when there's a rush of international interest, but then that hugely faded, quickly faded. And then the other fact that he mentioned, I really wanted to echo, is that if you compare all emerging markets, Sub-Saharan Africa, MENA, Latin America, and then Southeast Asia and India, if you don't include them in the Southeast Asia part, the only region that's whereby the GPs are funded largely by DFIs is this one that we're talking about. It's non-existent or almost non-existent in other ecosystems, which means that then your commercial driven investment searching motivation is blended with impact objectives. People would definitely want to see mass adoption of clean technology. But then, does that money also come with necessary infrastructure funding for charging stations, grid availability or capacity to absorb this on, like, how would I say, not constant supply of energy because of the solar and wind availability is not always 24/7. I think that's a question mark. So I just really wanted to echo what has been said. That's what I observed as well.
Very, very interesting. A very different investment landscape than compared to Europe. And I just wanted to also follow with you, Olivia. What would you say are the key funding resources for tech startups, especially foreign ones, if they want to expand to Africa? Is there also these development funds, or are there also local investors they can join?
Yeah, I think probably depends on how you frame the story. Like maybe I would use the story of a Nigerian company which expanded abroad and then attracted foreign investment as an example to think about how a foreign company can come to Africa or come to Nigeria and maybe attract Nigerian capital. So the company I'm talking about is Move, is one of our portfolio companies. They partner with global mobility platforms like Uber, Careem, Grab, and so on to provide vehicle finance for people who cannot afford to buy a car to drive for these gig platforms. They proved the concept in Nigeria, but quickly they just pivoted to India, UAE, and so on. And in that transition, they intentionally choose to work with regional big funds in those local economies and also global investors, because their story is that we are bringing African innovation to the world. So I think if the story for foreign startups is about we're bringing innovation from our home country to the world, I think the chances are that you might be more likely to attract international investors.
Very interesting. And I want to find with you, Joseph. You that work in the Smart Africa and helping institutional investors, like, do you want to just take first, like, what kind of different investment opportunities are available?
So maybe just to add to what she talked about. So when you look at funding in Africa is still primarily driven by VC, but we've also seen a shift. And this is because the number of active VC investors has dropped to the lowest since 2021. And on the alternative side of things, many of the startups are opting for debt financing. And I think this accounted for about 30% of total funding, which is a big shift from the previous years where equity dominated. But we're also seeing government grants and development finance institutions like DFIs playing a bigger role, especially in sectors like climate tech and also social impact ventures. So there's that shift towards other alternative sources of funding to complement the drop in the number of VCs on the continent. So that has kind of widen the spectrum in terms of opportunities that are there and also options for funding.
Good to hear for our startups that their opportunities are getting more and more wide. And I want to continue, Flo. If me as a startup wants to come and pitch for an investor like you, what are your tips? How should I prepare?
Wow, that's a great question. But I think one key, at least for my own perspective, is one key thing I really like to look at is a deep understanding of the target market, right? I think the African market is really unique in different ways, right? Especially we always talk about fragmentation. I think that's like one of the key area we always like to highlight. And the reason that why we always highlight that is expansion across countries is really, really hard, right? So what happens is that most of the time we have a winner in one country and they're able to grow exponentially in that country, right? It's really hard to have a company that has made it across 2, 3 countries, right? So for you to actually make it in one country, it means that you have to capture a significant part of the market. And for you to capture a significant part of the market, you really have to understand deeply the needs of the customers, right? So a really close approach, customer centric, philosophy towards startups is very much encouraged, right? Especially that the purchasing power in most African countries is really low. And what that brings is that you can't really have a product that is, I like to say, that it has to be transformational, not marginal, right? If you're improving 5%, 10%, the revenues or reducing the cost of your target customers by 5 or 10%, it's going to be extremely hard for you to get adoption, right? It has to be a way transformational type of product that is, 5 times, 10 times better than what they already have, because the purchasing power is really low, and that leaves small or no room at all to try different type of products, and I think that's what we see as a different characteristic compared to more developed markets. Because if you think about the US, how a company usually starts is, hey, I have this product, I approach businesses, I really want to see how that's going to be adopted. And then most businesses actually have like an experimental budget on the side to try new products, right? And then they'll see how this goes, and then eventually they'll adopt it. For most African businesses or consumers, you don't really have that leeway, right? It's either a clear, visible value addition, or it's nothing at all, right? So you really have to have a strong value addition and really strong unit economics for you to really get adoption from the early stage from African businesses. That now paired with the lack of capital, there is not much capital here on the continent, which requires most of the time companies to grow quite sustainably. So profitability is very much encouraged from very early days, even very early to a point that it's scary. But yeah, So you really have to know your customer markets to the core and truly understand their pain point and provide the product that is solving their issues. And that's what I really want to see in companies pitching.
I think that's great, and it's quite different. I would say, like focus on one region or like a country, and really have a clear product with a clear value add. I think that's actually very valuable for all entrepreneurs, because I would say now I can talk mostly about Sweden, but in Sweden we have a lot of issues that you say you have a very long experimental phase, but you never really catch up to the market, and people or the companies actually go bankrupt. Right now, I don't know if you saw, but Northvolt in Sweden is going bankrupt. They filed for bankruptcy. So it's good that it's more founded in reality, I would say, and very nice to hear. And Olivia, I wanted to continue with you. It's on a similar topic. What kind of challenges and mistakes do you see foreign entrepreneurs doing when entering the African market? And do you have any tips for us who wants to enter the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when we mention foreign companies or foreign entrepreneurs, maybe there are two types or more than two types, but largely one, the foreigners that have lived and worked in the country, versus secondly, just someone who bought a ticket and then second day they decided to launch a startup. We've heard of the story. I'm not going to name that, which actually was they raised a lot, but then end up being in a miserable situation. So I would say from investors' point of view, we wanted not only commitment, but really demonstration of how you can do this business, first of all, in a country that's not your home country. So the local context and local knowledge. Secondly, like there's already millions of similar ideas that are being tried by local entrepreneurs. Why are you in particular in a better advantage compared to them? And if we don't really have convincing answer, I think that is based. That means that it's the idea or the venture is based on a very shallow foundation, and any shift in the market or macro or regulations happens, then it's easily going to be collapsed. So I would say that's my take on it.
I think what you're saying is aligning with the previous sessions as well, like try to have not only local knowledge, but maybe even like a local partner before you're starting, because it's so important. And I want to continue with you, Joseph. Do you want to explain more about the role of Smart Africa and what you're doing?
Okay, so yeah, when it comes to what Smart Africa is doing, maybe on the key focus of entrepreneurship, we have what we call the Smart Africa Network of Investment of Incubators and Accelerators. And this kind of, it's an umbrella of three pillars, that is policy, entrepreneur support organization, strengthening, and also capacitating fund managers. So the first pillar is dedicated to policy reforms, working with the stakeholders across the continent to see that we can come up with better policies that speak to the actual needs of entrepreneurs. And then the second pillar is geared towards creating an enabling and more participatory environment where we see many of the entrepreneur support organizations thrive and also grow towards supporting startups. And the third pillar where I'm taking lead, that is the Smart Africa VC Lab. Our focus is, initially our focus was to capacitate fund managers. But when we did the needs assessment, we realized that we need to involve the LPs in the conversation, because we established that the issue is not just about lack of capacity from the fund managers, but also having the strong interplay between the institutional investors and the fund managers is still a big challenge. So what we're trying to do is to create a dual track model where we cater for both the LPs and the GPs, so that at the end of it all, there's that what I would call a seamless pipeline, that one GP can easily identify an LP that they can work with from the cohort. So that is the initial goal of what we're doing. So in a nutshell, from an entrepreneurial perspective, that is what we're doing from Smart Africa.
Thank you so much. And we just want to ask you one more question, Joseph. we've been talking about that we have like South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt as the four main large markets, if I remember it correctly. Are there any markets that you see that foreign entrepreneurs can join that are a bit unsaturated or like less saturated and that you think would gain a lot of traction?
Yes, and I think it all goes back to what the entrepreneur seeks to achieve, but what is the investment thesis? And like I mentioned earlier, I kind of gave you a projection feel of what the investment looks like. So yes, we have the big four, but we also see a lot of trend shifting towards, there's a paradigm shift. Yes, there's the fintech, but now there's growing interest towards impact investing. So there's a lot of investors that now are looking at combining business success with impact. And this is now in areas like agri-tech, climate tech, there's food tech. So I think that is taking stage on the continent. But again, it goes back to what are the initial goals of the investor? What is their key focus in terms of what they want to achieve? So if that aligns with the current shifts, then yes, that could work for them. But in the alternative, I think I want to also build on what Olivia said, that you need to do your homework. It's just not about knowing that these are the existing opportunities. Knowing the investment landscape in its entirety is very critical. That I think gives you heads up and also a broad understanding of what to do as an investor.
Thank you very much. And Florent, I wanted to continue with you. So how does your firm or other firms work with international investors, or are they mostly just local investors you're working with?
Yeah, thanks for that. So the fund, our LPs are experienced on the continent. Just heads up, we are not DFI funded, so there's more flexibility around what we can do. What we try to do is to bring international expertise coupled together with local knowledge of the space, right? So given that you have international investors who have seen some of these models, already have learned a few key lessons internationally. We try to have them bring in that kind of expertise to the startups in Africa, so that some of the lessons learned in other markets can be shared. That's one. Second thing, we try to encourage the same investors to come and tackle the African market. It's a small fund, $10 million fund. So we pride ourselves to maybe providing a potential room for these startups to tackle bigger market, to access bigger amount of money, right? So if it is good for a good product market fit and there is good expansion from the business, there's possibility that external investors will be interested to enter the market, at least through these startups for them to get exposure on the continent. So that's the second. And the last one is really the local knowledge. So having people based on the ground brings some form of expertise. That's one, and also can open up doors in terms of network and helping with regulation on the ground. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very, very much. And I want to close this session with a question to all of you. And it's so imagine now we have this Ukrainian entrepreneur. What would be the practical advice, and you can keep it short or longer, to secure investment from either your organization and maybe from Joseph, from your perspective more generally? We can start with you, Olivia.
Sure. Mine is going to be a bit more specific because that's a real challenge that we are facing across the board, not only, I guess, for Ukrainian entrepreneurs, but overall. How can you think about your realistic exit scenario from the get-go? To the point that Yusuf mentioned that in recent years, the funding has dropped. I think it's a reflection of also like people realizing that exit is not as easy as we had thought. So there's not many exit events or activities that have happened. So now in our investment like DD process, we really go very deep into, okay, if it's acquisition, is it going to be a PE buying you out, or is it going to be some strategic player, and from where? From Europe, from US, from Asia. If you have that answer in your mind and have a plan to build towards that exit path, I think that's a big win for you and for us, and then we will really be keen to consider the investment opportunity compared to, oh, I'm just thinking about IPO in 10 years with baseless assumptions. Then thank you. We appreciate your ambition, but I think we need more realistic foundations. Yeah.
Thank you, Livia. I love that it was so practical and very specified. Thank you very much. And Joseph, do you want to give this more general perspective? You're muted. Sorry.
I wouldn't want to go to the aspect of general, but I think for me, one of the things that I've learned over time is that you need to be able to do your homework. That is very important. And I'm using Africa as a case study. And, Africa is not a single market. It's 54 different countries with unique consumer behavior and competitive landscape. So before you expand, you need to research the specific market you want to enter and understand the target consumer. And I think this is something that's been re-echoed through the session. So I think for me, that is very important because in the absence of that, you misfire, and that's why we have scenarios where Africa is going to be a high risk perception, but I don't think that is the case. I think the issue is not understanding the investment landscape and where the priority is or where the opportunity is, and I think for you to do that, you need to do your homework.
Thank you, Joseph. And like you said, it's echoing a lot of previous messages. Like, if you're going to enter this market, please do your homework and really understand how different different countries are from each other. Thank you a lot. And Flo, do you want to end with your perspective for your fund?
Sure, I think I had mentioned this, also aligned to what Yusuf had just mentioned. I really like consumer. I like to call them consumer obsessed founders. So really know all the numbers, just know every single aspect of your consumer, know them to the core. I think that's something I really much enjoy. I would rather actually work with someone who's very hands-on, numbers numbers efficient compared to someone who's more technical, might not have a good understanding of the market. By someone who's really close to the market and truly understands the ins and outs of his customer, what makes them tick, is really something I always look at before investing.
Thank you so much to all of you, and it was amazing to hear. I think what I will take with me is like really do your homework, understand the customer as well. The last one I didn't think about, but also think about the exit strategy in a very concrete manner. Thank you so much for taking the time and inspiring us to open in Africa. We haven't decided on which market, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now
Thanks.
we're at the end of our session. So I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you all for listening to this almost 3.5 hour long session. And to end, I just want to encourage you to join our other market discovery workshops that are coming up. We have one in 2 weeks for the United Kingdom, and then one mid-April about Turkey. And here is the QR code, but you can always find information on our different communication channels. We have the website, Seeds of Bravery. We also have newsletter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I also want to thank all of my colleagues, Anastasia, if you want to say hi, Abby, I don't know if someone from Plug and Play is here as well, because we're all doing this together, as well as thank all of you speakers and panelists. Even though we've been here for 3 hours, I got super inspired and super energized. I'm working at Impact Hub, but I want to launch a startup now as well in maybe Nigeria. I will see what happens, but thank you all for your time and your input.
Yeah, on my behalf, I really appreciate how the session was crafted, and thank you, Alexander, for amazing moderation and experts that you've invited. It's always a pleasure to work with you and in Seeds of Bravery, and also to all of our experts. Like the thing that you did today is very important for Ukrainian ecosystem, because you provided a step-by-step plan for market expansion, for go-to-market strategy, and this helps open up these markets for us and create new opportunities for collaboration, for potential partnership. So really, really appreciate you taking time and dedication to do that. So thank you so much on behalf of Welcome to Tech Acceleration and all of our Seeds of Bravery partners. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Anastassia, for those wonderful words. And I want to also say, like, please don't forget all of the startups to like connect with these experts. Like you said, they can help you enter this market and become a local partner. That will be super important for your expansion. And like I said, once again, thank you. Abby, do you want to say some words, or should we finish here?
All good. Just to, I suppose, echo the sentiments of both of you guys. Thank you everyone for joining today, and to all our experts for their fantastic insights. Another successful session, and we'll see you at the next one.
Yes. Thank you all. And yes, reach out if there's anything.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.